Peace, brothers and sisters. Welcome to Shoot the Breeze here on the Bitter Medicine Podcast. I'm not Koku. I'm your co-host, Jacadero, filling in for Brother Koku today. And before we get into topics about what to expect on Shoot the Breeze episode 212, let's go ahead and run the intro. Come on!
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAC Radio. Welcome to the Bitter Medicine Podcast, where it's all about Black empowerment. Our show focuses on Black news and entertainment, arts, science, economics, history, people, and strategies that uplift, empower, and motivate Africans within the diaspora. And now, your host, whose favorite color is black, Goku.
Welcome back to the...
All right. And once again, I am not Brother Koku. I'm Jacadero, filling in for Brother Koku on the Bitter Medicine Podcast, Shoot the Breeze episode 212. And on tonight's episode, we got a few topics to cover, dealing with Greater Israel, African traditionalists, and linear time, believe it or not. Before we start the show, we are on a network. That's right, a podcasting network. Let's introduce you guys to those who don't already know.
Have you ever considered joining KWAZ Radio? Each of our hosts shares their unique perspective with you. You might have a perspective that needs to be shared. If that's true, hit us up at kwaz.radio@gmail.com. What are you gonna do? What you gonna do?
Yeah, let's get into it. Once again, I am Jacadero, filling in for Brother Koku here on the Bitter Medicine Podcast. This is Shoot the Breeze, episode 212. Let's go ahead and let's get into the introductions. Before we do so, let's say hi to a couple of these viewers. Daily Affirmations says, good evening. Good evening, Daily Affirmations, what's going on? And for those of you that don't already know, you can be a part of Shoot the Breeze episode 212 here tonight. That's right. Go ahead and click on the link to be a panelist. That's right. Also, if you don't already know, we have a Discord. That's right. There's a Discord, the Bitter Medicine Podcast Discord, where you can chime in not only just on Saturdays, but all throughout the week. Discord, rumor has it that Discord elects serving heads of state. If I was a Nepalese, or if I'm a Nepalese listener, I know that I get a chuckle at that. So let's go ahead and move to Shoot the Breeze topic number 1. And it is, most of the people who saw this viral tweet about African time failed to understand it, especially African Twitter historical enthusiasts. And this is brought to you by several different media platforms. The first one is a little longer media platform. We're going to go ahead and share that with you guys. Bear with me.
summer green, we steady on the rise. Digging truth from ancient scenes, we open blinded eyes. Rhyme sharp like pirate lines, we break the bondage tight. Come you speaking revolution, keep the fire burning. Chimpy drums guide our stride, we march with purpose proud. No more silence, we collide, our voices thunder loud. Politics and history, we stitch them in every verse. From Pharaoh's throne to Yaoundé streets, we claim the kanji verse.
What if I told you that for many African societies, the concept of the future doesn't exist, and that instead of time moving forwards, time actually moves backwards? This was the work of John Mbiti, one of Kenya's and Africa's greatest philosophers. And in 1969, he wrote something that completely reimagines the way we think of African time. Mbiti says time is a two-dimensional phenomenon with a long past, vibrant present, and virtually no future. Using Swahili words, he describes the two dimensions of time. The first one being sasa, the now, the recent past, and the immediate future which can be experienced. The second dimension is zamani. Zamani is the vast, endless past where all events eventually go on to live forever. But the future in African thought, it barely exists because time is made up of events. Time has to be experienced in order to be real. So because we can't conceptualize events tied to the distant future because they haven't been experienced yet, then therefore the future cannot constitute part of time. And this is why, according to Mbiti, African languages, at least the East African Bantu languages that he studied, don't have a word to describe the distant future. In African time, according to Mbiti, events create time. Seasons, ceremonies, a conversation, those moments produce time, and people produce as much time as they need. An example that Mbiti uses from the communities that he studied is that a year is measured based on 4 seasons, 2 dry seasons, 2 wet seasons. So a year is only over when those 4 seasons have taken place. So a year could take 365 days, 390 days. It doesn't matter the number of days in a year. What matters is that the 4 seasons have taken place. And this is in contrast to the Western view towards time, where time is a commodity, something that can be spent, saved, wasted, or lost. And according to Mbiti, this is why if foreigners come to Africa and they see people sitting under a tree, they would remark that, okay, why are these people wasting so much time? But in African thought, that sitting under a tree is not wasting time. It's either waiting for time or producing time. For me, I think this Western idea of time as a commodity is what drives this Western obsession of progress, development, and some promised future. And this difference shapes everything from politics, economics, to how we live our daily lives. Because in African thought, the golden age isn't in the future, it's actually in the zaman. According to Mbiti, the future is only a shadow until it comes to the present, and then it flows into the zamani. So in that way, time moves backwards. We are not the ones who move forward into time. So of course, Mbiti wrote this from a theological point of view because he was trying to explain the nature of African religion. But my main takeaway from the parts of the book that I've read is that unlike Western cultures and religions with end of the world myths,
I'm going to give you this designer bag if you can prove to me that you know your finances.
Has no end. Seasons, years, birth, marriage, death, it's all a cycle. Asante kwa kutazama, tafakari hayo, and I'll see you in the next video.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man? Bro, I'm out, man.
John Mbiti's 1969 idea gets misread a lot, that African time, and this is just based on the African communities that he studied, specifically in this book, 2 East African Bantu communities, that time is made up of 2 dimensions, a long past, vibrant present, and virtually no future. But what did he actually mean? Firstly, Mbiti was a theologian. He was studying African religions comparatively to Christianity or Islam, which emphasize meaning in a distant heaven to be hoped for or hell to be feared. Comparatively, he found that the African communities that he studied ground meaning in the here and now, in lived experience, in memory, and in community. So Mbiti describes the 2 dimensions of time, the first one being sasa, the now and the near future, which we can actually anticipate, and the second dimension being zamani, the vast, endless past where all events eventually go on to settle. So time only becomes real when events happen. Then it moves from the sasa into the zamani. So virtually no future doesn't mean no planning. We absolutely plan. We prepare land, we store food, we arrange inheritance, we dream, and we aspire. The point is, planning is event-based and it's communal. It's not an abstract infinity. So yes, Mbiti used Kiswahili words sasa and zamani to describe the two dimensions of time. And so you might think that Kiswahili has words to describe the future, mustakabali, baadaye, siku za usoni, and so on. So language shows that yes, we do imagine ahead. But Mbiti's claim is about orientation. African thought doesn't dwell on a remote, abstract, speculative future. Instead, it anchors time to seasons, milestones, ceremonies, things that are already in our zamani. So context matters. Mbiti was a theologian writing about religions. And it's not to say that all African societies think about time in exactly the same way. It's just making a broad philosophical point based on research done mainly in East Africa to open the door and invite us to think differently about how time is lived. Asante kwa kutazama, tafakari hayo, and I'll see you in the next video.
So I'm going to take this time to respond to this video, the uproar over this video, and just some of the foolishness, from the likes of Jared Taylor. So Jared Taylor is one of these white nationalists who tries to promote the idea that Black people did not have civilizations before Europeans. And I presume that Jared Taylor is a Christian or comes from the Christian tradition. And, based upon the Bible that most Westerners, the promoters of Western civilizations, believe in, Black people were the first to establish civilizations. Nimrod himself was a Cushite, a Hamite. The ancient Egyptians, who Jared Taylor and his ilk deny Black. They deny the fact that the ancient Kemites were Black. According to the Bible, they would be the descendants of Ham, and they would be Black. Right? The Bible even says that the ancient Kemites came from the south, or Pathros, Nubia. So it's clear that they're, basking in hypocrisy. But this idea that, African people did not plan for the future, this idea that African people did not have a concept of the future, many people are misinterpreting, just the scholarship that this dear sister was trying to bring forth. Within the African context, time is not only, polychronic as opposed to monochronic, meaning that Africans understand time with respect to natural, relationship or natural phenomenon, like the tides of the ocean, the rising and setting of the sun, and just different observational things that they could identify in nature. But time is also cyclical within the African context, as opposed to being simply linear. Now, this is something that is seen throughout the planet with respect to time and with respect to, the historical understanding of time. A lot of people try to act as if, the way that the Western, post-Enlightenment views time today is, universal, but this is only so that they could colonize our understanding of time. As the great, Nana Amos Wilson said, the way that we view time is the way that we materialize our reality, right? And if you understand the different civilizations of the world, whether you're viewing the Dharmic religions in Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism, they saw time as cyclical, right? So Kalpa, a single day in the life of Brahma, the creator god, would last 4.32 billion human years under certain understandings. And then you have different yugas, which are repeating ages within the Kalpa. And then you have the samsara, which is the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, right? The nature of one's next life is determined by karma, right? The ultimate goal is the achievement of enlightenment or nirvana within this context, right? So these are the dharmic religions. And again, according to Amos Wilson, this is the way that they conceptualize reality with respect to their culture. Now, even if we move forward to some of the Greek and Hellenist philosophers, right? You had the Stoicists, and they believe in the concept of a kypeirosis. And this is the great conflagration. They held that the universe is periodically destroyed by fire, then reborn exactly the same, repeating all events and lives ad infinitum. Then you have Pythagoreanism and Orphism, which also taught the doctrines of cosmic cycles and the transmigration of the soul, or reincarnation. And then there's the myth of eternal return. This is found in the works of Plato and others. And this suggests that history and time are not linear progressions, but are destined to repeat themselves in great cycles. You also have the Mayans and the Aztecs, and they're famous for their complex understanding of interlocking cycles. So time is not a line, but a sacred repeating phenomenon made of smaller cycles nested within larger ones. And many of the cultures that are indigenous to the Americas, like the Lakota people and their sacred hoop circles, had an understanding of cyclical time. Ancient Chinese cultures and traditional Chinese thought, right? Even though they had a linear understanding of historiography, their underlying framework was deeply cyclical, right? Their core concept involved the dynamic balance of opposites in yin and yang that govern all phenomena. So this interaction is inherently cyclical. Day turns to night, summer to winter, activity to rest, etc., right? Chinese history is understood through the concept of the mandate of heaven, or Tianming. A dynasty would rule justly, lose its virtue, become corrupt, be overthrown, and be replaced by a new dynasty, starting a cycle anew. You also have the 5 phases, or wuxing, and they're the cycles of interaction in wood, fire, earth, metal, and water, used to explain changes in both the natural world and in human affairs. So again, the idea of a strictly modern Western linear progressive concept of time arose from a combination of Judeo-Christian developed theology, which had a narrative of a definitive beginning in Genesis and an end in Apocalypse or Revelations, Enlightenment idealism, which is the belief in human progress and perfectibility, and then industrial capitalism, which is the commodification of time. Time is money, and the focus on the future should be growth. Now, this is absolutely not universal. And if we look at scholars like Umdigi and other Africana scholars, they directly challenge the notion of the history prehistory dichotomy within the African context. And they mainly do this because they want to castigate African civilizations for not having the preponderance of writing throughout their civilization, when we know that African culture was predominantly oral, and most of the cultures of the world were predominantly oral. This doesn't mean that they didn't have writing. The letters that we're using themselves within the Latin and the Greek script, and the most prominent, scripts of Eurasia, of Europe and Asia, they descended from the ancient African Medu-Neter system. And Jared Taylor, he should listen to, church fathers like St. Clement of Alexandria, who articulated that all Christians should study the Medu-Neter as a form of ancient wisdom, right? So the letters that we're using today in English and these Indo-European languages, they descend from the African Medu-Neter writing system. So Africans use these writing systems in certain arcane societies, secret societies, societies that were lay societies away from, the public view. They use it in certain administrative documents, certain guilds, right, who had the authority. But within the general dynamics of the society, and Baba Banachi Montgomery has articulated this within his recent interview, the oral testimonies were more dynamic, were more evolutionary with respect to the society, the concrete reality at large. Whereas writing scripts are dead. They're not as dynamic, and they don't involve dynamic rigor that we can see within oral testimonies and oral renditions, right? And for those who want to castigate oral data is the foundation of linguistic science. Without living languages, you can't have linguistic analysis. So Africans have always, celebrated the value of the oral narrative and oral nature, right? So if we specifically look more closely into the work of, Dr. Pierre Umdigi, he highlights that language reflects our beliefs and our connection to the divine, as seen in the French adieu, a single noun from adieu, meaning to Dieu, God, to God, and the English goodbye, a contraction of God be with ye. This connection appears also in the Bible with the Alpha and Omega, symbolizing the beginning and the end. And in the Bassa language of Cameroon, where Ao shares a similar meaning. These parallels between the ancient Kemetic, Bassa, and biblical traditions highlight the enduring influence of theology on language, revealing deep links between existence, culture, and spirituality. Undigi also explains that in African culture, time is cyclical, encompassing both primordial and historical aspects tied to creation, challenging the false division between history and prehistory. He emphasized Africa's unity and legacy, asserting that infra-Saharan Africa played a significant role in shaping world history long before European colonization. The origin of Kemetic civilization is noted by Verkuter, predate recorded history. Joseph Kazerbo further advocates for history without text, challenging the concept of prehistory and highlighting Africa's rich past. Undigi emphasizes the vital role of historical linguistics in uncovering Africa's past, showing how language and history are deeply intertwined. He draws parallels between Paleo-African traditions and certain Greek epics, both shaped by cultural exchange and united in their celebration of timeless gods and heroes as a foundation of identity. By preserving tradition and meaning while evolving over time, language serves as a powerful link between the society's past and its future. And if we analyze some of the linguistic data here, you can clearly see a Paleo-African link between the ways that the ancient Kemites, describe the future, and the way that the Copts describe the future, and the way that many, inter-African languages describe the future. Odi and Ihu in Igbo, what is in front? Dakye in Akan.
All right, that's a bit. It's a lot again for the Shoot the Breeze topic number 1. Again, most people who saw this viral tweet about African time failed to understand it. We have other media to go with this prompt. This was brought to you by Trigger Happy. Before we get into everything and the responses and the other media, let's say hi to the chat. Why not? Once again, Daily Affirmation says good evening. What's going on, Daily Affirmation? Trigger Happy says peace, peace, peace. Trigger Happy, what's going on? Joe says good evening, everyone. Happy Saturday. Happy Saturday to you, Joe. Chukwu says salute, salute. What's going on? Kofi says was Chukwu. Chukwu meaning the deity from the Igbo tribe. And also, let's go ahead and I believe one of the media that Trigger Happy sent with this prop matches what we just watched. So we'll try to watch the other shorts that go with it. Stand by here. All right, and one last short to go with the Shoot the Breeze topic, number one. Stand by.
The Mexican fisherman story. Are you familiar with that?
No, I don't think I am.
An American businessman goes on holiday to Mexico. He gets taken out fishing by a local Mexican, and he asks the Mexican how he spends his time. The Mexican says, I fish a little on the morning, I catch enough for my family, we go back, we cook, we laugh around the fire, and I spend time with my children. And the American businessman goes, that's stupid. Here's a better idea. What you should do is actually spend most of your day fishing, and then with the surplus fish, you could sell them at the market. Mexican fisherman says, and why would I do that? Once you've got the additional money, you could start to employ some of your friends, and they could come out fishing with you too, and you could catch more fish, which you could sell at the market for more money. Why would I do that? You would be able to incorporate in America, and you would maybe be able to start a canning factory so that you could own the entire production process, and you could then sell the company for a lot of money. And why would I do that? He said, because you'd be able to fish a little on a morning and then go back and spend time with your children around the fire.
Very good.
And I often think about that as a much more direct route to happiness.
The place you end up is the place you started from.
The Mexican fisherman story. Are you familiar with that?
No, I don't think I am.
An American businessman goes on holiday to Mexico. He gets taken out fishing by a local Mexican, and he asks the Mexican how he spends his time.
All right. And all the media that we have for Shoot the Breeze. Topic number one. Most people who saw this viral tweet about African time failed to understand it, especially African Twitter historical enthusiasts. This was brought to us by Trigger Happy from the Discord. If you guys don't already know, Discord is where you can come with the community, communicate with the community, and submit your own prompts for Shoot the Breeze episodes on Saturdays. Again, Discord, download it. Nepalese citizens have downloaded it, and guess what? They've elected a head of state. With that being said, let's go ahead and let's get into the panelists. We'll start off with Black Steel. Black Steel, what say you? And first, welcome to the show. What's going on, Black Steel?
Not much, Jack and Daryl. I hope you're doing well. All right. Peace to everyone on the panel tonight. This is a heavy topic. I'll be the one to admit that I at first did not understand, and I still struggle a little bit with the overall, point about how Africans conceptualize time. But I do appreciate the other video, because it did kind of make a comparison to some of the other non-European worldviews and how they view time as a cycle, right? Instead of like a linear point from one end to the next. And I think that there is a purpose behind this, because like the video showed, how basically in a capitalist system, everything is meant to be consumed, right? Everything is meant for profit. Everything is meant to be, and something's value is only determined based on how much profit it makes you. Even your time. That's why people say time is money, right? Don't waste time. So everything is geared towards commodification, right? Something to be bought or sold or be obtained or to be held. And this view not only affects not just time, but the natural world as well. And we can see that, just based on how nature and the rest of society is being treated. Everything is open for commodification. Even human interaction is now based on on how much money you have or how much you can spend something. And the idea is that, oh, I wasted my time doing this, instead of appreciating the value that you gain from things. Yeah, it's understandable that, especially as because Africa, even though Africa is the oldest continent, I'm not old, but the first continent where humans appeared at, there's not really much information that delve into the way African society conceptualize reality. And I think that's very deliberate on the part of the white supremacist power structure that we live under today. So I'll leave it there. Very good prompt. I don't know if I personally have the depth to deal with this, but it does make me think on certain things about how we view reality. All right, so I will stop there. Thanks.
Appreciate it, Black Steel. I'm glad that you pointed out the depth of this Shoot the Breeze topic. Number one, with all the media that we watched with it, even myself, it was something that, we usually have pop culture related topics or political or geopolitical topics. And this one was one that would cause you to work that other side of your brain. Trigger happy. Man, I usually look at you as somebody that will always bring comedic relief with intelligent insight, but today's Shoot the Breeze topic number one was tough. Let me move on. We've got our next panelist that wants to chime in. Buana, welcome to the show. And what say you?
What's happening, Jacadero? I hope everything is good with you. Yeah, what they say in Kenya, Yambo is Yambo.
So like Jumbo is more. I know we got to get to your part here, but Jumbo, when you greet somebody with Jumbo in Kenya, we probably think that you're from Tanzania because that's proper Swahili. So we just say mambo.
Mambo.
Okay, yeah, and then to reply to that, you can just say poa. Poa is POA, and it just means fine. Yeah.
Okay, poa. Okay, I got you. What's up, Black Steel? I hope everything is well with you as well. I am gonna to do justice because this was a heavy meal tonight. So to do justice for Trigger Happy, I'm gonna just briefly touch on the 3 videos because usually with Camji Verse, I have to watch his videos more than once, really to get at really what he is trying to say. But just to touch on it briefly for the first video, when he was talking about Dr. Mbidi and how the Africans look at time in terms of it being cyclical and not necessarily linear. And he said that usually the Africans look at things in terms of events, okay? But I kind of disagree with Dr. Mbidi because there are 2 kinds of events. There are observable events, like how we were saying, the changing of the sun to the moon, day and night, harvest season, plants growing, all these kinds of things. And there are unobservable events, things that you might not necessarily realize with the human eye. The human body changes every day. We get new cells, skin cells. Sometimes we get gray hairs without us even knowing we getting gray hairs. Sometimes we have less hair. But these are still events. These are unobservable events. So time should take those events into consideration as well if we base in time based off events. There are observable events and there are not necessarily observable events from the human eye because the human being changes almost every day, daily. So I don't know how you would address that particular thing because I see that as something that I would really want to ask him about. In terms of the second video, there are some missing things in that video, through history because the cartoon guy didn't touch on the slave trade at all. they went through history of the animals and all that stuff like that, but they didn't show that the white man's interaction in terms of the slave trade and how he benefited from that as well, or what he changed in doing that and created that. And at the end of the video, it has aliens coming to ultimately destroy the white guy or whatever. The issue I have with that is I don't think that that's how the world is going to eventually end. I think two events may happen. I think that the world, this globe that we living in, is a basically a living kind of thing, and I think that if human beings become a threat to it, the world will get rid of the human beings. We are just a species on this planet Earth, and there are millions of species that's been here and it's gone now. And when the Earth decides to get rid of this human species that's becoming maybe a threat to it, it'll get rid of it. So he may not even last to see that alien, or that same white male gonna destroy himself through nuclear arms and bombs, or pressing the button. He's gonna destroy himself. It won't take aliens. I assure you, it's gonna take the human being, or it's gonna take the Earth itself, which is gonna completely wipe out the human species, I believe. But for the third video, the thing I have about that is the reference in terms of the businessman, American businessman going to Mexico. See, the thing is with that is he is talking about a subsistence level. A man going out and farming, a man going out and fishing and providing the needs for himself and his family. If you live in an environment, very small environment, where it's just a few people trying to resolve feeding issues, providing home subsistence and all these kinds of things. The problem with that is if you relate that to complex societies where you have millions and millions of people, then the food problem or how the food problem becomes much more complex. So they're standing at two different places, because if a subsistence farmer or a subsistence fisherman is only trying to solve the problem of how to survive for himself and his family. But when you have complex societies where you have millions and millions of people, that problem becomes a much greater problem. So they standing at two different places. Yes, the conclusion is probably similar. The wealthy businessman who will solve that problem will probably want to go break away and live that existence away from everyone, where he's doing what the Mexican fisherman is doing. But initially, if you start at two different places, I think that this is the reason your conclusions are going to be completely different, because the solvable problems in terms of a subsistence farmer, which is much less complex, as opposed to a person, a businessman who's living in a society where you have millions and millions of people and millions of hungry mouths that need to be fed. In that society, that person who's living on his own might not necessarily be so safe, because you doing these things and I don't have these things, and I don't have a boat to go out to fish, to get the fish. I'm gonna wait for you to come off of that boat and take your fish away from you. So now I'm creating another kind of problem because of the complexity of the society you live in. I don't know if y'all get that or not, but I'll leave it there. That's my crack at those three videos.
Appreciate it, Buana. Trigger Happy responds to you and says he doesn't think that, okay, Buana doesn't understand that this can apply on a wider scale. It's a European cop out to suggest that we have to live in such a chaotic and capitalistic hellhole now. What's your response to that, Buana?
I don't know if he's describing it as a hellhole. Maybe for some people it is a hellhole, but for some people there is an ease of, rather than going fishing for 8 hours to maybe catch something and put it on a dinner plate at the end of the day, it's much easier to go to the grocery store and get that same fish and put it on my dinner, put it in the oven or put it in a pan and then fry it. I take much less time in doing the ease of how you would go about doing things is much simpler in that kind of society. So I don't know if it's necessarily it's a hellhole for everyone. I think that that's a big word.
So Buana, what I think what he's trying to say is this, right? We're not talking about the buying and selling of commodities, right? I don't know if do you ever see Jurassic Park, Buana?
Yes, I saw Jurassic Park.
So in the very first movie, they're talking about how they cloned the dinosaurs, right? And that one dude, Ian Malcolm, was like, you spent so much time thinking about whether or not you could, that you didn't stop to think if you should. You've taken the power of nature and you've harnessed it and you're using it like a child playing with his father's gun, right? So when I hear these prompts, right, the idea is that the European method of production in reality is the default, right? One of the things we talk about in school when I teach my students, right, we talk about these different European philosophers that are the foundation of, you know, Western democracy, whatever the fuck, right? One of them talks about is Thomas Hobbes, right? Life in the state of nature is nasty, brutish, and short, and that people without a ruler will default to a form of barbarism. That is not the case for everybody. There are plenty of societies, non-European societies, that were built on cooperation and sharing and appealing to the needs of everyone, not just a select few. So yeah, there are some people who this is not so bad, but we also live in a world where there's 50%, well, like most of the world's wealth is concentrated in the hands of a few individuals, you know? So this is something that I think about when we are thinking about how we interact with the world and how we deal with things like that. In reality, things could be a lot better. A better world is possible. But the thing is, people are stuck in a box and they can only see inside the box, where they don't take the opportunity to look outside of it. So
I agree. I agree with you, Black Steel. I think that the world could be done better. And I think that there are people who sit down every day and contemplate what is the best way to do things. But there are also some people who sit down and say, well, I need to get as much as I can, even if it's at an expense of everyone else. So you must battle these kinds of people. You must battle these kinds of thinkers. I think that there's enough for everyone in this world. I believe that there is enough. How do we get to that? I don't know the answer to that, brother. I really don't know. But I also know that we need to consider human greed. Human greed is something that is in all of us, from the wealthy man to the poor man on the street corners. And if you don't think poor men are greedy, and have what you would consider to be a capitalistic mindset, I think that we just need to consider human greed. That's just within our nature. And even if we was to create a society where we share, there will always be people within that society who want more at the expense of someone else, just because of the idea of
yeah,
human greed.
and we've always had that too. But the thing is, in our world now, greed is incentivized, right? It's a benefit. There's certain things that are a benefit. Greed is incentivized. Individualism is incentivized, right? But the things that a functioning, healthy society needs are almost punished. So if we want to get things on track, and I think that as the current system as it exists, it's on a timetable. Going back to the discussion about time being linear and cyclical, right? We can see, those of us who understand history can see the patterns and the cycles that are playing out as we speak. So the way things are going now, it's going to be a hard collapse, right? And then the question is, what do we do after the current order starts to collapse in on itself? How do we recover from that? And how do we make the world a better place? Because the way things are currently going, it's very reminiscent of some earlier historical cycles that we've seen. I think, and to the prompt point, talking about how we repeat the same cycles over and over again. God, I hope not. I hope not. I hope we actually learn from some things so we can stop repeating these cycles again. Because I'm getting tired of seeing the rise of fascism. It's
Oh no,
getting kind of old.
I think that people will learn. I think that some people will sit back and say that wasn't so much of a good thing to do. Let's not do it that way anymore. I think that people, just as how you learn, you as an individual, you learn through trial and error. Many things. Some people, not everything you learn through trial and error. Some people, some things you learn by observing what someone else did and say, I don't want to do it that way because I see what ended up happening to him. I think that generations that's coming after us will look at this generation and say, what the hell was they trying to do? Let's not do it that way. I think that people will learn that way as well. So I try to, maybe that's a humanist way of looking at the world, but I believe in, I think that human beings will get it together. I would like to believe that. Let me say it like that. I would like to believe that human, just as generations past, looked at the generations before them and said, we shouldn't do it that way. You know, we shouldn't do it that way. I don't think that we should have human sacrifices. I don't think we should cut out someone's heart and eat it as a form of serving and worshiping God. Let's create a building instead. You know, it's like, I think that human beings, as they look to the past, I think that they'll say, well, let's not do it that way. And going forward, we should try another way in doing it. I think.
Appreciate it, you too. Wardrum says, time is to be enjoyed, not dreaded, referring back to the cartoon that we had saw. And Trigger Happy says that I've explained in many prompts before, commerce is in all economies. It's not solely tied to capitalism. It's like saying revolution is only tied to Marxism. And he also adds that also Buana's point about subsistence is so flawed because, like I said before, we've built metropolitan areas, for those that are unfamiliar, before Europeans, meaning that we can have those same process of markets and ready-made products. Cheryl says that it's more important for Westerners to live in convenience because there's literally no time to appreciate nature or life. She also adds, the first thing that you hear from Black people is, I got to make that bread, quote unquote. It ain't got to make itself. It ain't gonna make itself. They have no time to actually enjoy that bread. That's an awful life from my perspective. This topic was dealing with time, and whether that's linear or not. The awesome astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson talked and answered a question about extraterrestrial life and if we are the only human beings in this world. And he says that with just the Milky Way galaxy that we are currently in, and I only say Milky Way because I don't know what my tribe calls this galaxy, but he says that it's actually more likely, because of the vast universe that we have even yet to discover, that we have other life, that we are not the only life. So my question in pertaining to time is, if we as Africans were the first on Earth, and we've been here for over 200,000 years, how come we haven't had contact with those other extraterrestrial lives? This might be another topic for another day, but it's always been a question that I've asked.
Well, I can answer that question pretty easily for you if you give me a second.
Go ahead, Black Hero.
All right. So what you are dealing with is called the dark forest hypothesis, right? So this is something, so someone asked the same question. If the universe is full of life, why have we not contacted it? So the concept is that presumes that any spacefaring civilization would view any other intelligent life as an inevitable threat and thus destroy any nascent life that makes itself known. So imagine you're in a dark forest, right? And the forest is full of predators. You're going to do your best to keep quiet, right? The forest is dark. You don't know who's out there. You don't know if they could be potentially hostile. So the reason that there is not any intelligent life that we've noticed is that they're making a concentrated effort to avoid contact. Is because they know, imagine you have a universe full of potential hostile threats. Think about what happened just within our history, right? What happened to the Native Americans upon first contact with the Europeans? They eradicated them. Now imagine that on a galactic interplanetary scale. So that's why, even though the universe is full of potential life, we all pretty much keep quiet because we don't want to attract any attention, or they don't want to attract any attention. You don't want the flood or the aliens from the xenomorphs to come down and start playing eggs in people's chests. So that's just my thoughts on it.
I would also add to that. I would also add to that. As you are an intelligent person, Jacadero. Okay, you don't want to hang in a company of very unintelligent people. All right, people. If I was an evolved species, let's say, quote unquote evolved species, and my spaceships could go in an interplanetary way from planet to planet, right? And let's say I observe this place called Earth, and they have not developed the technology yet to even go be planetary, go outside the solar system. What are they gonna add to me by me saying hello, I'm here, let's have a conversation? Yes, you're not gonna add anything by me introducing myself to you. If you watch Star Trek, one of the missions of Star Trek is not to interfere into civilization's development, because if they haven't evolved to a particular level of civilization, and this spaceship, coming from thousands of miles away, who may have evolved through, because we look at our timeline and human beings is 200,000 years. What if they've been in this universe for 1 million, 2 million, 3 million years, and their technology is we would look at them as gods. It's the same way the Aztecs was looking at the Spaniards. It's like we are. They may say we are not evolved enough species to interact with us yet. And they may say, well, we don't want to interfere with their development. We don't want to interfere with their civilization, their development. And they stay away from us. And some people may say that's a good thing, as Black Steel said, because when Christopher Columbus came to the Americas, his thing was, these people are the most peaceful, loving, good-spirited people ever. They would make good slaves. That's what his thinking was. So imagine a more evolved species. I don't know. It might be a serious situation if we have alien life form that is completely is thousands and thousands of years ahead of us and meeting us for the first time. What do you think may happen to us, the human race, as we know it? So I don't know if it's a good thing, I don't know if it's a bad thing, but I think it's a reason for it. I think that there may be life out there, but I think it's a reason why, if there's life out there, they decide to say, well, we're gonna back up. And plus, what are human beings into? We're not necessarily the most. Y'all guys were just talking about the economy and how so many people have so little and few people have so much. Someone looking from a distance may say, well, why are these people behaving this way? They can't be evolved. You know what I mean? They can't be evolved. So it's like, nah, we can stay away from them until they develop some more and understand some more about the universe before we decide to interact with them. That's what I think. But
my question to you two, Black Steel and Buana, do you think that we've already had, or foreign beings have already had contact with Earth? I ask that because there's always that legend that whether it's the Anunnaki or anybody else, that our ancient Kushites or Kemites ancestors were already in contact with these individuals and were communicating with them via the...
I don't know, but I do find that whole ancient alien thing to be somewhat kind of racist. I do, and I'm gonna tell you why. Let me cook for a little bit. Because the reason why I feel it's kind of racist, right, is because they can't conceptualize the idea of Africans or indigenous Native Americans or Asians or anybody else creating civilization, right? It's so at the time that the Egyptians, the people of Kemet, were creating the pyramids, looking at the stars. Most of Europeans were literally living in caves and dung covered huts. They were. Somebody made a statement that ancient Egypt, the ancient Rome, that Egypt was more ancient to the Romans than Rome is to us, right? So the Romans, looking back at Egypt, were looking back at almost 3,000 years of history. And the idea, again, the whole idea of ancient aliens, that there's no way these people could have come up with or created this idea. They had to have some type of help. And then it becomes the aliens or the giants or the underground subterranean people who live under the earth. You know, all that other type of bullshit is really what it is. So that whole idea of ancient aliens bothered me, because it's almost, it implies that there's no way you could have thought of this. Just like when those Benin bronzes that they took from Africa and put them in the museum in Paris and London. The first time the Europeans saw that, they said, "Oh, there was no way these Africans could have built this. This had to be people from Atlantis." Right? So they had people. So it wasn't the Africans who you took it from. These Africans happened to find these artwork on the beach somewhere from sunken Atlantis, or even Great Zimbabwe. You know, the whole idea was the Great Zimbabwe was not built by the Africans who lived there. It was really built by the fucking people, survivors from Atlantis, or you know, some hidden white tribe that showed up and built it and disappeared and left no records of their existence whatsoever. The whole type of thing, it just goes to show, you know, that Black people have no history and that we're inferior, right? And all these other cultures, all these other continents were built up cultures. Like when those white supremacists like to talk about why Black people didn't domesticate certain animals, like, oh, why didn't they domesticate the zebra? Why didn't they domesticate the you know, whatever animal, and they could have used that? Or why didn't they invent the wheel? As if the European Africans were using the wheel. The idea that if civilization does not develop among the same lines as Europeans develop their civilization, it is somehow inferior. And that, again, that whole idea of ancient aliens visiting Earth, could they? It's very possible. You know, we have to understand how vast the galaxy is, how vast space is. The Milky Way is 100,000 light years across, and light year is not a measure of speed. Light year is a measure of distance. That means if you're traveling at the speed of light, it would take you 100,000 years to reach from one end of the Milky Way galaxy to the other end. And right now, we don't have the technology, or can even conceptualize technology, of moving at a speed faster than light. So it's very well that there is other life out there. But because of the vast distances we're talking about, we might not ever know it. It takes light from Alpha Centauri 4 years to get to Earth. Who knows how long it takes, you know, these light from these stars. When you're looking at a star, you're looking backwards in time, because you're looking at that light as it reaches us. I'm sorry, maybe I'm going a little bit too deep. I'll let Bwana say something. I'm done. Thanks, so.
No. I actually I want to agree with Black Steel, because you have to be careful with that narrative, mainly because they used to say the aliens built the pyramids, you know, and I want to be very careful here, because of course we know that, of course, Black folks build the pyramids. That's just that's a historical fact. However, this world is millions of years old, and events could have occurred even before the dawn of man. Even before that, there are many things that's unexplained by the scientific community, in terms of a lot of archaeological evidences that they don't necessarily have an answer for as yet. You know, who created it? Why was it created there? What does it mean? You know, and I think uh, because of because this world has been here so long, you know, things may have happened uh, without y'all even knowing or understanding. You know, because of the time period is the Earth has been around. So if we and because how we measure time with 200,000 years ago. That's when Homo sapien came around. So it's like, you know, in a timeline when you're talking about extraterrestrial beings, things that's not interplanetary. You know, Black Steel was talking about the speed of light. That's our measurement. That's human measurement. So imagine someone coming outside our solar system and say, well, that's not how we measure it. You need to get rid of that, because we don't even use that. So in terms of traveling one distance of a part of the Milky Way to another, based off of our understanding, it would take 100,000 years. Our understanding, but I'm saying that maybe it's possible. It's possible maybe some other understandings may exist in this universe, this vast universe. I'll leave it there for other brother, whoever that is, to go.
I appreciate it, Buana. Thanks, you Black Steel. Let's introduce another panelist. Maybe he wants to dive on this current topic relating to Shoot the Breeze topic number 1. Kofi the Heathen. Kofi, welcome to the show, and what say you?
Yeah, hey, how you doing? I've just started listening. I'm not too sure what the topic is. Maybe it's based upon what you guys were saying. You're talking about ancient aliens. You're talking about extraterrestrial life, things like that. So I'll try to address all too. So Black Steel is absolutely right. I never entertained ancient aliens or whatever like that, because it is racist. So when you look at what to the pyramids of Giza, to the civilization there in Machu Picchu, there in South America, there's like, what? How did these primitive really means prime, first people, but Europeans think that primitive people aren't as intelligent as modern people. Oh, these are Bronze Age people. You know what I'm saying? They don't know what they're doing. So that's why they think like, oh, there's no way they could achieve something as great as that. It must have some type of supernatural, extraterrestrial type of influence, right? But when it comes to the pyramids, you can see the evolution of pyramids. So one of the first pyramids that was being built was the bent pyramid. It's obviously within the name, it's self-explanatory. It's not perfect triangular, is not a real good geometric shape. It's all bent, and you see all types of evolution of different pyramids till you get one of the great pyramids of Giza, then the Step Pyramid. Then you see them like, oh wow, I see where they started off, and I see where they ended up. Oh, I can see the evolution of that, right? So when they say this, they're being very racist because they're supposed to be the quote unquote history channel. They should know that already. Like, oh, there's an evolution of pyramids, just like a car. Saying the Ford Model T car, saying usually it started out with Teslas to EV vehicles. You have to start somewhere, So no one's gonna say, "Ooh, how did the people over here invented electric vehicles?" Like, it's very disingenuous. And yes, I do believe we get my Neil deGrasse Tyson on that. Yes, it is insane to think that there is not a civilization out there. It is insane to think that there's no other life in the universe besides us. I forget the terminology, but there's 3 types of civilizations, right? We're not even at the level of number 1. Number 1 type civilization would be, I forgot the name of the metric of how it's being measured, but type 1 would be a civilization that's able to circumnavigate its own solar system and travel in between its planets, right? You go to the moon, you go to Saturn, you go to Mars, just like how I'm going to take a plane and go to California or go to China. We're not at that level yet. And then there's a type 2 civilization, right, that is able to circumnavigate the galaxy that it's in, right? And type 3 civilization is to circumnavigate the whole universe and able to harness energy like nuclear fusion, which we would call stars. Different type of stars, whether it be blue suns, red dwarf stars, medium-sized stars like yellow stars like ours, and things of that nature. And we have to understand how immense that the universe is. Just in our solar system alone, if the sun was to explode right now and it's daytime, we wouldn't know for 9 minutes, because the light that we're receiving from the sun was lights that came from the sun 9 minutes ago. And that's the sun that's right there that we feel that's hot. right? It feels that it's right there on your face. So imagine if you were to go to the outer planets, which would be Saturn, Jupiter, Neptune, Uranus, and other Kuiper Belt objects that used to be Pluto and other things. It takes them way longer to get that sunlight. And that's just in our solar system alone. That's it. We're if anyone who Carl Sagan is, when you look at the universe, we're pretty much just a pale blue dot. So if the galaxy has hundreds of billions of stars, right, like our sun, larger, very much smaller, or way more immense, like red giants, stars like Betelgeuse and all these other stars, and it consists of hundreds of billions of stars in one galaxy. Now imagine you take the Milky Way galaxy, which is a mid-sized galaxy, which is not really that big. Our closest galaxy to us is Andromeda, which is 10 times bigger than our galaxy, and it has way more stars. So you got this thing called the galactic cluster of galaxies. So imagine if you grab a handful of sand, and those are just the galaxies alone in the universe. And that's not even half of the galaxies if you count those grains of sand. So I'm saying all this to say, if you have a civilization that has the right conditions that Earth has, and life was able to evolve uninterrupted with any kind of catastrophic things happening on their planet, or anything external like a supernova or the sun dying out or whatever, things like that, they will be able to surpass us because the Earth is only about 4 billion years old, right? There's other planets and systems that's older than us, and if uninterrupted, they could probably achieve time travel. So as far as like Black Steel says, something that's very perfect, if they were able to find something like a wormhole where they could bend space and time, they'll probably be able to overcome the distance of space of as far as light years. So yes, it is very possible that there is life, but it could be life as far as like an ant colony, which I think is more prevalent than having like an ant colony or just regular wildlife, and not high intelligent beings like us or smarter. And I don't know if I'm ranting, but I pretty much ended there.
Woo! Got some intelligence here tonight. We always got intelligence. For those that are listening, once again, I am Jacadero filling in for Brother Koku on Shoot the Breeze, episode 212 on the Bitter Medicine podcast. You can be a part of this. Click the link to be a panel in the chat. It should be an attached link, as well as the Discord. Go ahead and join the Discord, the Bitter Medicine podcast, and you can submit topics as well as exchange intellect with every one of us and everyone else that is just listening and may not be in the chat.
Jacadero, can you please put that link to the Discord, please? Some people may not have the link to the Discord. We need more activity on the Discord. When I go on the Discord, I see more than 10 people on Discord. Maybe they're on a different channel or something like that. So can you just please put that link on the Discord, please?
You got it. You're going to have to give me a little bit. In the meantime, while I get that ready, let's go ahead and get into the Shoot the Breeze topic number 2. And that is, why do many traditionalists emphasize minute differences as the reasons on why there can be no African cultural unity, in parentheses, but will proceed to lament about Abrahamic practices, especially when Abrahamic practices have diversity but are existing entities. And there are 2 medias that we can go and watch. Stand by.
Hating each other, because whether your group was in the transatlantic slave trade or not,
yes,
your group was probably in another slave trade, probably in the trans-Saharan slave trade or East African slave. It was in something. Like they didn't just leave you alone.
yeah. Real talk. You know what I'm saying?
You know,
Trust
that
me.
fields like epigenetics is studying to see how this trauma goes through DNA and affects us even to this day. So, you know, I love my African people, continent and off the continent wide. So
Yes, sir.
it's just how I operate.
Yeah, that's 100%, my brother. We're gonna get through these comments now. The commonalities seem to be clear over and over again. Would this not support the political project of unifying African spiritual practices for a unified Africa? It's an interesting question. We're gonna come to the.
I believe in us having unified.
I was cleaning pee every single day until I found what rescue shelters use. Everything. Pee pad.
What's the word? Treaties or agreements within African nations to where we support each other politically. But a unified African spiritual practice is utterly impossible. It goes back to what I said earlier. How many different types of Christians you know?
Yep.
They can't unify either. Because this practice, and I'm speaking, let me just speak for Isheshe for a moment. Even within Isheshe, it is so diverse.
True.
We have what we call Odu,
which
are spiritual signs connected to a story, which connected to a type of sacrifice we need to make, which is connected to all types of literature for our betterment.
Yeah.
Even the order isn't the same when you go to places in Yoruba. Because if you go to Ile Ife, they have their own order. And when you go to Oshogbo, which my lineage is from, it's a different. Even when you go, see, and this gets back to the diversity within ethnic groups, because like we say, there are no electric fences. So when you go to the border of Yoruba land and it borders another place like Cameroon or Benin, or you get different type of Yoruba people.
Yes.
That they may have Olodumare, but they might have Edumare.
Yeah.
They might just say Olorun. They might just say another type of Tamba. It might be the same thing, but they pronounce it deity. Even the word Ashe. If you go to Oyo, they say Ashe. The S drops the dot. No longer Ashe for them. That's Oyo dialect. They don't have Osun, they have Osun. So the diversity even within our borders, and you'll start to see things that you've never seen before in Yoruba land, because these people are border and they're being influenced by other Africans. So Olokun looks different amongst the Odon and the Esan people than it would look with the Yoruba people. And so it's impossible to tell people stop doing what you've doing for thousands of years and we gonna do one thing. Like, so what language are we supposed to? Is everybody supposed to learn Swahili? Is everybody supposed to learn Yoruba? Is everybody supposed to learn Igbo? Like it would just be impossible.
How does what you're saying now though challenge or validate? How does it fit into the concept of Kimoyo? If that is an impossibility, does that therefore invalidate Kimoyo as a conceptual framework?
No, because even if we are diverse, we still have these commonalities that we talked about.
Right.
Oshun is the deity of magic amongst the Asan, and she is the water deity amongst the Yoruba. They can still identify the same commonalities. This is still a Kimoyo practice. This is still a common that vitalism, that vitality, that dynamism that Dr. Fukia talked about. It's still present. It may be different. It may be different, but it's still common to the African spiritual phenomenon, which we are trying to describe when we say things like Kimoyo. So just like in the political news, Niger, what's the other place? Is it Chad? Niger, Chad, and there's one other African country. Burkina Faso. They've been dealing a lot with each other. They have strong African leaders now that are not.
Oh, you're talking about Burkina Faso, Mali, and Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. Yeah.
So they've been dealing with each other politically, and they've made a type of bond to where they're not going to sell each other out, and they're challenging Western imperialism. They haven't abandoned their own cultures. You know, they're just presenting a unified front, and that would be something that would be beneficial for all of Africa. You know, that's what the Sahel Alliance. You know, it's something that can be beneficial, but it doesn't mean you have to stop doing what you're doing and adopt a one type of conglomerate spiritual system.
All right, and we have a second media post also for this prompt as well. Because of time, we'll get through that. Stand by.
Talk about African spirituality, singular, it doesn't exist. It can't exist because there's no singular cosmology or cosmogony or so-called worldview shared by African peoples, ancient and certainly in the contemporary moment. There is none. There has never been none. And I also want to demolish along the way the idea of purity. We'll get to that in a moment. So let's start, let's say, in Southern Africa. Southern Africa, there is more of an emphasis in terms of belief and practice, spirituality, that is more rooted in ancestry than it is in the spirits or spiritual forces and figures lodged or located in nature. For example, take a very well-known group that is known by way of TV, movies, and literature, the Kisizulu, right, or the Zulu people. So in the Zulu creation story, there is this figure, Nkulunkulu, that is created, right? He is this force and figure that then creates the earth and the elements of the earth, the seasons, therefore, and of course, human being. The Zulu considered this figure to be their first common ancestor, right? Notice that there is an emphasis or a central role given to this central figure as an ancestral figure, not a force of nature, not a force of the cosmos or the universe. Whereas, let's say, if you move it further a little bit north into the Central African region or West Central African region among the Bakongo people, you'll find that there's also a attention paid to ancestry, but also to other forces. So among the Bakongo people, in terms of their cosmology, right, that their view of the universe, the world, and human beings' place in both, in their creation story, there is this almighty supreme being figure, Nzambi Impungu. And Nzambi is, in fact, this creative force, right? This energy, this force that essentially there is a void in the universe, right? Now, it doesn't mean nothing is there. There's a void, which means that there's space, right? And space is something. So it's not the idea of nothing. So there's space, there's a void. And that void is essentially ignited by this force of fire. That fire becomes this particular force that ignites this void, this space, and essentially the heat then fills the void or fills the space with content, right, with material. And those materials include the earth, right, the animals, the winds, the rains, the water, and of course, human beings. And in that, there's a notion of muntu, the idea of the human being, of the person that becomes this sort of figure or stand-in for the earliest of progenitors of human beings or the earliest ancestor, right? So you have here both, you know, this creation, but the emphasis is less on particular kinds of spiritual force of nature, unless you consider the fire to be a force of nature, which it can be, but also there's an attention paid to ancestry. So that's Central Africa, West Central Africa, and these are broad stroke, but the idea is to give you something to hold onto as we move through this conversation, all right? Move further north, let's say into West Africa, in the forest. Let's say you come among the Yoruba people, whom the houses call Yoruba, and that's really how they get their name, Yoruba. And so among the Yoruba people, which is well known, you have this creative force, Odudua, but you also have Olodumare. And these creative figures, and of course you also have, Orumila, but Odudua is one of the central figures in terms of the creation, right? And Orumila is there as a witness to this creation, right? But then, much like the previous figures that I've mentioned, they sort of disappear after the acts or the moments of creation, right? And out of that creation, you have not only the earth, you have the seasons, the birds, the animals, the plant life, like you see in back of me, and you have human beings as well. But you also have forces of nature that are also created, referred to as orishas. And you can find parallels among the Fombe people or the Erefon, which they have Mawu, and out of that you get these laws, or you get these particular forces of nature that are created, right? And so among the Yoruba, when you find crossovers, and in fact parallels, direct parallels, and there's cultural, historical reasons why, such as Shango or Ogun or Yemanja, and Obatala, and so on and so forth, right? You get these forces of nature that are more central than ancestral figures, right? Take a note. As you move further north out of the forest into the West African savanna, let's take the Dogon people, who are also well known. They live on the Bande Gara cliffs, in these highland portions of what is now Mali. And they have a notion in their creation story of this creative force referred to as Ama. Now, Ama should be confused with the Akan name, meaning a Saturday-born female child. This is a creative force. And Ama, essentially mates with the earth. In the first attempt, it doesn't go too well according to the sort of, standard account. Creates a jackal, and a jackal is associated with disorder, chaos, right? And for many who study ancient Egypt,
all right. And those two medias go with Shoot the Breeze. Topic number 2, why do many traditionalists emphasize minute differences as the reasons why there can be no African cultural unity? But will proceed to lament about Abrahamic practices, especially when Abrahamic practices have diversity but are existing entities. Before we get into the panelists' reaction, let's read some of these comments quick. Trigger Happy says, so he mentioned about the Bakongo, but you can find the same ideas he is saying amongst Kemet and many other African cosmologies, like even when the Fulani as well as the Zulu. Wardrum says, in chiefdoms and kingdoms, we go back to tradition. Certain lands are strictly for tribal purposes. All right, and let's get into the panelists. We'll start off with our new panelist for tonight, Chukwu Igwe. Chukwu, welcome to the show, and what say you?
Salute, thanks for having me up on the panel. This religion topic is very interesting. I think that the reason why traditional African religions aren't universal is because they're limited in their nature. So the different tribes in Africa are different kingdoms with different religions, different cultures, different histories, different worldviews, and different enemies. So if you take the traditional religion of the Igbos, it's going to center on the Igbo people, and the different Igbo deities are like avatars of the Igbo people that are centering Igbo people, and the practices are tied into Igbo culture. So there is no Great Commission for Igbos to, make believers of people who aren't Igbo. It's like a limited to just Igbos, and I believe that the other traditional African religions are the same. They're limited to their specific kingdom, their specific tribe and ethnic group, and their specific cultural practices. So those religions cannot be universal because there is no injunction to baptize and seek and save the lost the way that the Abrahamic religions do. And that's one reason why the Abrahamic religions have so many followers, because they each have their own great commission to seek converts that doesn't exist in traditional African religions. And I'll land the plane there.
Appreciate it, Chukwu. And let's go ahead and let's go with Black Steel. Black Steel, what say you?
Sorry, they had to get back to the computer. Anyways, I don't. So here's the thing, man. I don't think cultural unity is necessary, right? In the larger struggle of things, I think that because African people are oppressed, right? I think that what we should unify around is ending our oppression. Whether or not you have the same, you worship your deity the same way as I do, or maybe you use an extra consonant in your word. I don't think that's a big deal. I think we got bigger fish to fry, right? And I think the people who say it's impossible, I don't think so. If you look at other cultures around the world, right, we have pan-Europeanism right now. And Europeans have literally been at war with each other for millennia. But yet, when it came down to it, right, they were able to organize and unite on the basis of dominating other people, right? So Trigger Hack asked me a question: if cultural unity among Black people is unnecessary, why do you all complain about Abrahamic practices? So here's the thing, right? Especially Christianity, Judaism, Islam, right? As we can see with this Charlie Kirk thing, when Charlie Kirk got killed, right? Many people were putting their religion above their race. So the reason people complain about Abrahamic religion is because it forces an anti-African worldview at its core, right? There's not to say there are not some Black Christians who are not relevant to our struggle, or there are some Black Muslims who are not relevant to our struggle. But I think those people are really fighting against the original programming that is implanted within us. Just like, there was there was a I'm trying to think who it was, but never mind, forget that. All I'm saying is just that there are some we cannot let the small things, the minute things, keep us apart from each other, right? There may be some minute differences in culture. I don't think that's a big enough issue to not unite with another African, especially in this time that we're currently living in right now. Unless their difference is so great that we cannot coexist. Like, I would never unite with no FBA person, right? I don't care how Black they are. If you FBA, me and you ain't nothing to talk about. Stay over there. However, I might be able to work with the Black Muslim. I might be able to work with some Black Christians. Okay, if we have a common goal, right? Even with Black people, they're talking about the cultural differences in North Africa and Southern Africa and Central Africa, and the European is in your continent and the Arab in your continent, taking everything and running off with it. So why is it that we can't overlook these minor cultural differences? Understand, this person is our enemy. We got to fight back. Europeans already did it to us. Think about through the transatlantic slave trade. They took African people from different nations, different ethnic groups, and they just put them all in a boat. And once they crossed the Atlantic, they were all black. They were all niggers. They didn't care if they were Yoruba or Hausa or Ashanti or Fulani or whatever. They were just all niggers. They put us on the, and once we stepped on the shores of the Western Hemisphere, boom, we were no longer what we were. We became black, they became white, right? Because in Europe, they weren't white. They were Christians, they were Arabs. I'm sorry, they were Christians, they were English, they were Irish, they were French, but once they crossed the Atlantic, boom, they were white. So we have cultural differences. So what, right? To me, those cultural differences, are not big enough for us not to create the unity necessary to free ourselves. I think that we really don't. I think, to me, I feel like there's a lot of concerted effort to keep Africans not unifying. So because there's so much effort to keep us from not unifying, we'll see these little small things get brought up to keep us at each other's throat. Meanwhile, Europe, England, and France fought a 100-year war with each other, slaughtered each other for World War I, World War II, massive millions of people dead. But yet, when it came time to, to organize and create NATO and the UN, they all got on the same page. So, it's just something I think about. And where China does, China has cultural assimilation, but they still allow people to have their own beliefs and system. They can still exist. Look at the Han Chinese are the majority of the population, but there still are other people that aren't Han Chinese in China, and they can kind of coexist as long as they play it. They're not trying to rebel. But I think that depending on how extreme the situation is, some people we just can't unite with. But the little small things, we got to be able to look past it. Malcolm X said, when he left the Nation of Islam, he created the Organization of African Unity. He said, leave your religion in the closet, right? What you believe, that's your business. But here we're trying to get on the work of freeing our people. If you want to come in here and evoke Jesus and pray, this is not the place for you. And I think that if we do establish our organization, it has to be something that's rooted in liberation of African people. That's just my thoughts on it. So I'll leave it there.
Appreciate it, Black Steel. And Buano, what say you to Shoot the Breeze topic number 2?
Yeah, can you hear me, Jacadero?
Very clear.
Yeah, for me, this I believe this is a continental African issue. I think that I am a African person living in the West, who was born and raised in the West by my transatlantic experience. And I personally know that regardless of whoever God that my ancestors was praying to at the bottom of that ship, I still end up on a plantation and have to solve that plantation problem. So I had to work with people outside of my tribe, within my tribe, people who didn't speak my native languages, people who would pray to different gods. I had to learn the humanity of people with my transatlantic experience. So for me to, maybe I'm not the best person to answer this question, because for me, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. We had to grow, and our experiences almost became a human one. We had to resolve human issues, because no matter what God we was praying to on our plantation, there were human realities that we had to resolve. Human realities, and that's how we had to work together, despite our so-called cultural differences. We were made to work together. We were made to sleep with each other. We were made to have relationships with one another, and as in that, we had to learn from that experience and recognizing our humanness before our tribal distinctions and which God we prayed to. That it almost became a irrelevant thing. Irrelevant. In fact, even in Africa, matter of fact, the continental Africans could wax and wane about the cultural differences and the religious gods they pray to, but that Berlin conference made distinctions, regardless of what your cultural differences was. They draw lines around you and say, you are Nigeria now, exist within that space. I don't care if you're Yoruba or Igbo, we're going to make you something. And now, well, I ain't trying to go with my continental brothers. I'm saying that when we look at each other, we have to see each other as brothers. We have to respect each other as human beings, and we'll deal with the rest later. There are other pressing issues on the table. There are other pressing issues. If the enemies is at your gates, you worrying about. I think that we just need to. I think that we need to consider some things. Because when we get into this minutia, when we get into these arguments on minutia, or who God we praying to and which culture we practicing when the enemies is at your gates, I think it's ridiculous. Personally, me personally, there are other pressing matters to talk about, because that Gatling gun would have blown the Yoruba head off as well as it would have blown the Igbo head off. It didn't make no distinctions. So why are you at this particular point in human history? I just, like I say, maybe I'm not the person to talk about this. I think that the African traditionalists would be at better position to talk about this, because I'm not gonna. I think that the African traditionalists who are into these things should discuss these things, not me. But I'll leave it.
Can I add something to that? I agree with what the good brother Bawana just said, but I think there's two different types of integration. There's a cultural integration where we all adopt the same culture, the same language, the same religion, the same worldview. I think that kind of integration is not feasible given the differences in our ways of looking at the world. But there is a political and economic integration that's much more feasible. So, for instance, for Africans on the continent, if there was a way for Africans to form a single currency that's backed by African resources, oil, gold, precious minerals, and trade and use this shared currency to increase trade. This is a way for us to find a positive sum game that is mutually beneficial, but we still get to retain our specific cultural identity. But we can help enhance each other's wealth and military and political security through a strong currency. I see the economic integration and political integration as much more feasible than homogenizing our cultures into one culture. And I'll land the plane.
Interesting. Last thoughts, Black Steel, or anything to add? All right. Well, if not, let's go ahead and move to Shoot the Breeze topic number 3. And it deals with Israel. And it says, Greater Israel is a project that Netanyahu admits he aims for. This could be a problem when it comes to the unification of Africa, hence the importance of Black involvement in the conflict. Once again, Greater Israel is a project that Netanyahu admits aims for, and this could be a problem when it comes to the unification of Africa. We got a media citing just for this, and don't worry, it's not too long. Stand by.
Basically admits on accident that Israel's aggression in Palestine, Syria, Lebanon, and Iran, and all across the Middle East has nothing to do with Israel's right to defend itself, but their goal of ultimately achieving the Greater Israel Project. Benjamin Milikowski, Netanyahu, I guess, in a recent interview, said that he's on a historic and spiritual mission, and he feels very attached to the vision of a Greater Israel.
מה אנחנו עושים כאן? אנחנו כאן שליחות של דורות. יש דורות של יהודים שחלמו שנגיע לכאן, ויש דורות של יהודים שיבואו אחרינו. אז אתה שואל אם אני מרגיש שאני בשליחות היסטורית ורוחנית, התשובה היא כן.
אני לא רוצה לסבך אותך לסיום עם תיק 6000, אבל...
מה זה?
זה הוויז'ן שלי, זה אחד הדברים שחלמתי עליהם, מפת הארץ המובטחת.
יפה.
הגיע הזמן, קוראים לזה ירושלם. אני לא נותן את זה לך, אני מעניק את זה לך כדי שתיתן את זה לרדך שרה.
תודה רבה.
אתה מתחבר לחזון?
מאוד.
באמת?
מאוד.
בישראל השלמה.
First of all, I'm not gonna lie to you. Last time I heard somebody was on a spiritual mission like that was George W. Bush. We all saw how that turned out, but I digress. Now, the Greater Israel Project is this concept rooted in a religious interpretation of the Bible, where they believe Israel stretches from the quote-unquote river of Egypt to the Euphrates. Now, in contemporary terms, that would mean Israel would control all of Israel, all of Palestine, parts of Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Egypt, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia. As you've probably noticed, almost all of the countries on that list have been attacked by Israel, occupied by Israel, or work for Israel, either directly or indirectly. In the case of Jordan, for example, they helped to repel the missile attacks from Iran to Israel when Iran retaliated for Israel attacking their generals in Syria. Or in the case of Syria, at the moment, Jolani is actively assisting Israel in achieving its goals of conquering Syria by basically allowing Israel to occupy whichever part of Syria they see fit to without any type of military pushback. And of course, this was after Israel participated in the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad, who would of course never engage in any assistance of Israel achieving this Greater Israel Project. But it's important to observe what the Greater Israel Project means and what Netanyahu's goals have always been since and even before October 7th took place. Without going into much of the details, we know now that Israel was aware October 7th was going to happen, and they did basically nothing to stop it. The Israeli government was warned in advance, ladies and gentlemen, that they needed to move that rave because that area would be attacked. Not only did they not move the location, but the IDF didn't show up until hours after the attacks were reported. We know that despite the fact the families of these hostages are begging Netanyahu to end the war and the offensive in Palestine, he's refusing to listen to them. We know that shortly after October 7th, out of nowhere, Israel decided to start attacking Lebanon. They began to bombard Syria once again and ultimately helped to overthrow Assad and install a literal terrorist that is basically bending to the will of Netanyahu. We know that the one country in the Middle East that could actually wipe Israel off the map, in Iran, has been constantly perturbed and attacked by Israel, as if Israel is consciously aware that if they want to achieve the Greater Israel Project, well, they have to get rid of Iran because Iran ain't letting it go down like that. So they attack Iran unprovoked on a regular basis. We know that despite the fact that there is no Hamas in the West Bank, attacks in Hamas ramped up after October 7th, despite the fact the West Bank had nothing to do with that. And they admitted that they plan on annexing the entirety of the West Bank for absolutely no reason at all, without any justification. So although this would technically be speculative, the evidence points to the fact that Netanyahu likely allowed October 7th to go down the way it did so that Israel could play victim, thereby getting the support and the finances to execute his Greater Israel Project. And I know some people would say, would he really let Israelis die just to achieve a project for Greater Israel? Sir, ma'am, I need you to kindly refer to the Hannibal Directive. Allowing Israelis to die and directly being responsible for the deaths of those Israelis is literally an Israeli policy. Not to mention the other day, Netanyahu said he's planning the full conquest of Gaza, despite the fact that he is fully aware that that will likely lead to the deaths of the rest of the Israeli hostages being held there. And that's likely because there is no greater Israel project without the complete conquest of Gaza. So it's like we've been saying from the very beginning. This has nothing to do with Israel's quote-unquote right to defend itself or quote-unquote right to exist. The genocide in Gaza and all the events that took place after have been used as an excuse to set the stage for global domination on behalf of Israel. Domination in which other countries not only not hold them accountable, but actively finance and cheer on. Welcome to the Greater Israel Project.
Woo! A heavy topic at hand. Again, Shoot the Breeze topic number 3, Greater Israel is a project that Netanyahu admits he aims for. This could be a problem when it comes to the unification of Africa, hence the importance of Black involvement in the conflict. Again, this is pretty heavy. Before we get into our panelists' thoughts and responses, let's go to the chat. Trigger Happy says, and again, this was sent to us via the Discord. If you don't already have it, it's in the chat. I'll put it again. You can always submit your own topic ideas for Saturday's Shoot the Breeze show. And Trigger Happy that submitted it says that this topic right now, I designed it for Brother Bakari and anyone else that understands that, yes, Black people have a fight in the Palestine and Israel conflict. Greater Israel will be a disaster for us. Cheryl says, oh, well, Egypt is gone anyways. Wardrum says, I want full unity, but we have this tribalism and religious problems we have to get. All right, well, let's go into the panelists. And speaking of Cheryl, let's go ahead and welcome Cheryl to the panel. First, welcome to the show. Second, is it okay if I address you as Cheryl?
Cool. Can you guys hear me?
Loud and clear.
Oh, yay, it works this time on my phone. Okay. Yeah, it's not a problem. So I think before I get into my own opinion, I need to clarify some things first. If you could just bring back up that question again. Yeah, so okay, so this could just be because I don't have too much knowledge about the area, but I just want to know the second and third order effects of the Greater Israel becoming a thing and how specifically that's going to affect the unification of Africa. I mean, it's just okay. That's the first question, and also, when it says Black involvement in the conflict, what kind of involvement are we talking here? Because I mean, I'll just leave it there. What kind of involvement?
The Greater Israel Project also includes parts of Egypt and Sudan, right? Okay. So that's probably why they're saying Africa. It could be a threat because they want to maintain dominance over that entire region. It's not just the parts of Western Asia, but they also want to control the Sinai, Egypt, all of the land around the Red Sea. They want to control that as well. So that's kind of what I think they mean when they say Africa being that it could be a problem for Africa because they want to claim some African land as a part of their of what they consider to be their dominion, right? It's also there's a lot of different reasons, but I'll wait till it's my turn to go into detail.
So I'm glad you said that. Okay, so I'm just trying to figure out who's controlling that area now.
So right now it's different. So you have Egypt being under the control of Egypt. You have Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia. And if you were to look at the map, so this is the killer. If you look at the map, part of the land that they want is Mecca. Mecca being the holy city for all Muslims. So Mecca is on that, in that greater Israel map. So it's currently under control of Arab, some parts of Africa, the parts around Sudan and whatnot, under control of Black people. Most is Arab and Muslim countries that are under control.
Okay, so yeah, I did see what Trigger Happy said in the comments about the trading of weapons and all that and stuff. I just because I guess I don't know enough about what kind of trading is already taking place there, and how is that trading that's taking place there now between whoever controls the area right now. How is that going to be different than when Greater Israel does it? It just seems like the white people just exchanging places to me. It's just I don't know.
Here's what I think is part of the
I don't
problem,
know.
right? Israel is a settler colonial state, right? Like the United States, like Australia, like Canada, so on and so forth, right? One thing about settler colonies is they constantly need to expand, right? They're not going to stop at colonizing just Egypt and Sudan. They're going to head further into Africa. Another thing is that Israel is a laboratory for repressive policies, right? Many of the tools that have been used to oppress Black people in the United States, across the world, have their origins in Israel. They test out warfare, they test out weapons, they test out tactics on a captive population of Palestinians, and then they use that information to export that to the rest of the world, to use them as a way to oppress other people. So that's why it's important for us to maybe not put boots on the ground, but to be in solidarity or just understanding what's going on. Because a lot of these, I've always said I'm in solidarity with the Palestinian people, always.
Interesting.
Always. Because I understand that the tactics used against them today will be used against us tomorrow. What's happening in Gaza right now is a message to the rest of the world. If you resist, we will destroy you, and no one will come to help you. This is a message that they're sending, I believe, to the rest of the world. And that if we don't pay attention to that, or if we just let this slide, we're next on the chopping block. Anybody who opposes this order. But I'm sorry, Shay, I just talked through your
No,
time.
I'm glad you said that. No, I'm glad you emphasized that, because I just didn't have too much information on the topic. But I guess because the U.S. has got bases in like almost every African country. I mean, it's just, I'm sure they're probably doing some deals right now with this whole Greater Israel project, because U.S. funds, sends money over to Israel all the time. So I mean, they're probably behind the whole thing. So I mean, I just think, like, it's not that I want to ignore what's going on there. It's just that I find that, especially on like Instagram, a lot of Black people are like, oh, Israel this and Israel that, but they don't say anything about the unification of Africa in the West, where you have, Mali, you have Niger, Burkina Faso, and all that going on. Like, it just seems like our energy and our attention needs to be a little redirected. And we're talking about trying to, if we're going to force or push back anything, I mean, the people who can probably do that best are that trifecta, or I don't know how many African countries are involved in that right now with Traore. I mean, that seems like your best bet right there. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It just seems a little weird. And you got all of these celebrities talking about, oh, I support Israel, and it just like seems like a little distraction. But whatever.
Appreciate it, Cheryl, and thanks for coming on. Please stay for the rest of the show. Comment we have from BBN, Brother Bakari says, shout out to Terrence Bud Crawford. Yeah, you saw that butt kicking that he gave to Canelo. There's going to, for those that are interested, there's going to be a parade that Omaha, where I'm based out of, will have for him on next Saturday, the 27th. Starting at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. So come out, come and see not just people supporting Bud Crawford, but the historic North Omaha, the historic Black neighborhood. I mean, at this point, it should be even called the city because it spans. I think there's at least 3 zip codes just for North Omaha. Nonetheless, Buana, Shoot the Breeze topic number 3, Greater Israel Project that Netanyahu admits he aims for. What say you?
Yeah, first let me say shout out to the 2 Black people who live in Omaha, Nebraska, Bud Crawford and this is really Black Steel's baby. He really has a fundamental understanding of the Israel issue. For me personally, I thought that there were Black people from Ethiopia who does live in Israel, and there are indigenous Black people on the Palestinian side. So there are already African people who have taken up arms and fighting on both sides of the conflict itself. Okay, so African people are already involved in this issue, in this specific issue. For me, my problem in terms of the realiness of it all is Kushner, Jared Kushner and Ben Shapiro. These are the Israelis who's giving me issues in the Western world, who have the ear of the president, but as far as the conflict itself, I don't know whose side to take. It's like, if you want Black people progress, there are Black people in the Israeli side who's taking up arms for the right or wrong. They have their reasons for doing what they're doing, and they've taken up arms against the Palestinians. And I look at that as Israel is an apartheid state, no doubt about it. But you have Black Palestinians fighting against their Black brothers on the other side of the issue. It's a very complicated and complex matter. In terms of it touching Egypt, Egypt right now is not represented by the indigenous Black population. Egypt right now is really a foreign Black population who is not foreign Black, foreign population of people who are really at the control and centers of power in Egypt. So if they get toppled I don't know. My vote is for the indigenous population of Egypt to come back into power. That's what I would want to see. I would want to see them have more influence in that area. As far as the Sudan, if these people think that they're just going to bully Sudan, I don't think Sudan have a recognizable president right now. That country is not ruled in the way that they want it to do. And the Sudanese are not going to behave like they think they're going to behave, even through strong arm methods, because the United States have tried that with Black Hawk Down. And you see what the consequences of that was. I'm not saying the Sudanese is going to defeat Israel, but I'm saying that if you take up arms against the Islamic world don't believe in turning the other cheek. They don't believe in that nonsense. So whether you want to fight Iran or Saudi Arabia or any one of these other Muslim countries, you have a big fight in your hand, brother. A huge fight. But like I say, I think that this is Black Steel's baby. He's much more experience on this topic than I am, so I'll just leave it to him.
Nice, I appreciate it, Buana, and the 2 populace of Omaha, Nebraska that are of African descent. We thank you and we appreciate your acknowledgement. Before we get to Black Steel and his thoughts, let's read some of these comments because you guys. Like I said, this will be a heavy topic. Trigger Happy says, for everyone on the panel in the chat, think of it like this. USSR and USA were not ideologically aligned, but they dropped differences and worked together to take out Germany. Ooh, okay, Trigger Happy. I see you. Cheryl says, the Black Israelites are loving this right now. Speaking of, whether you're Black Israelite, Black Nuwabian, I think that's how you pronounce it, Black Muslim, whatever claim of African descent or Black peoples that you are, and you want to be on this show, you want to be on the panel, click the link that's attached to the top of the chat. We'd love to hear different perspectives from Black peoples all over. Continuing to read these comments, Wardrum says, I can't believe the Arab has let them get this far. Yeah, that's called might, Wardrum. That's called might. And Israel is not playing around. Remember, they're financed by a specific nation, and that money long, boy. Cheryl also adds that Algeria has gone too. Will Arabs having control of Algeria affect how Africans unite right now? Black Steel, what say you to Shoot the Breeze topic number 3?
All right, couple things. Man, this is a heavy topic too, man. It's funny because I think that on one hand, right, every human being who has a soul has a dog in this fight, right? I don't think that. So a couple things. First of all, as I was saying to Cheryl, what Israel is a settler colony, right? It is a white supremacist settler colony that was placed in the Middle East as a way to offset emerging Arab nationalism, right? So those of us who maybe can remember back in the day, maybe about 1973, before my time, in the 70s, there was an oil embargo, right? Based on the United States support for Israel. And many Arab nations cut the supply of oil to the United States. And it drove gas prices up ridiculously. So that was in 1973. The United States wants to make sure something like that never happens again, right? So Israel exists as a way for the United States to project its own power in the region, right? To keep the Arabs from uniting, to maintain control of resources and whatnot. So in many ways, it serves the function that a country like, say, Colombia does in Latin America, or dare I say, Rwanda does in Africa, right? It is meant to be a projection of Western power within the region, which serves as a tool to destabilize the region. So the goal of the Greater Israel Project is just merely an expansion of the settler colonial system. So understand when in 1948, when Israel when they basically took the land from the native people there, the Palestinians, and took their land, the country was divided 49-51. 51% to the Jews, 49% to the Arabs. That was in 1948. So as of 2005, much of that land that was initially partitioned to be split has been divided more and more and more, to where the settlements, the Israeli settlements in the West Bank have expanded, even though that's supposed to be internationally illegal. They've expanded into the Golan Heights in Syria. They've taken land more and more around them. We already see what they're doing in Gaza. So the next goal is for them to take the Sinai Peninsula, then expand into Egypt, take more of Syria. Then they're going to take Lebanon. They want to take Iran. They can't take Iran. Iran's too strong right now. So the goal is to expand further and further into the Middle East and destabilize the region. This could have disastrous effects. And this is something that I think not Israel, but China and Russia understand that. That's why, they're working to support the Iranians. The Saudis don't like Iran. I think Iran is Shia. Is it Shiite? Iran is Shia, and the other ones are Sunni. But I mean, despite their differences, which is a crazy difference that they have, because they're all on the chopping block. They can't be so ridiculous to think that Israel is going to leave them alone. After they're done with the Palestinians, every nation in that region is going to be on the chopping block. And another thing I think we're missing is that America, in the United States, right, as conditions start to deteriorate in the U.S., the United States is very much in a You know, they're waiting for the rapture, right? There's a lot of evangelical Christians in the United States who believe that, you know, Jesus Christ is going to return to earth one day, and all of the stuff that's happening in the Bible is a result of biblical prophecy, whatever the fuck, right? But they want to create the conditions that would bring about the second coming of Jesus Christ, right? And they're willing to support any policy, no matter how much it inflames the Muslims over there, that would bring about a war, right? And I think that U.S. foreign policy is starting to reflect that you have these people who are, you know, in such a way to where they truly believe that they have to create, you know, they have to bring about the second coming of Jesus Christ. What does that mean? That means the destruction of the Dome of the Rock, which is a Muslim temple in Jerusalem, which was originally supposedly built where Solomon's temple is going to be built. That means you're going to further aid Israel. You're going to further increase the tension. Eventually, you're going to bring about the Battle of Armageddon, you know, whatever. But it's basically a death cult that is in the United States that wants to further expand nonsense, right? And basically bring about the potential end of the world. That's where I think that that's what I think that kind of the question is.
But
As
Black
far as
Steel,
yes.
Black Steel, their
Uh-huh.
leader is a humanist. He's a secularist. He don't believe in none of that shit.
Who?
He like Donald Trump. You know, he
Oh
doesn't
no,
believe.
Donald Trump don't believe none of that.
Yeah, so
Donald Trump doesn't believe any of that.
right. He want to live as long as possible, to sleep with as many young girls as possible, to drink one. I don't, you know, he's not a drinker or smoker, but he want to enjoy his life. He don't want to see the Armageddon. So he even if there are people, madmen, I call them, within the United States who want to see Armageddon, he is at the forefront saying, yeah, we ain't trying to pull this nuclear trigger, because if we pull this nuclear trigger, I will not be able to enjoy getting back at people who I hate, you know, and telling them they fired.
I would really question just how in control Trump really is. Trump is a convenient tool. He's a pawn that is being used to further the agenda of a certain group of people. But I would question just how much in control, even though Trump may not want the world to end. But overall, I don't think, but I do think that this idea of religion can be useful, right? The religion is what I think was it. The common people regard religion as true, the wise regard it as false, and the rulers regard it as useful, right? So if we can use religion, right, as a way for you to gain power, and I can convince you, oh, I'm the promised ruler. God has sent me to free you and whatever. I don't know. I think that is a useful tool. We all know who Trump is and type of person he is, and who's in control of the United States government. All these psychopaths who really just want to maintain power as long as they need. But you know, it's just something to think about. I'm sorry. I've been talking for a while. Let somebody else speak.
No, I think that it is a very dangerous idea. When some people have this notion in their head, in the second coming based on Armageddon, that is extremely dangerous. And for this particular issue, I don't like Trump, but I'm saying that it would be better for someone who at least enjoy breathing to be able to intervene in that idea being fostered. Because if the what are you talking about, bro? Break the rock? It's madness, man. It's madness.
It's a Muslim temple. It's called the Dome of the Rock. It's the third holiest site in Islam. So
once they destroy that, Jesus will come. So they're saying once they destroy that dome, Jesus will
So
come.
the idea is they want to rebuild the Temple of Solomon, right? The whole idea is that Solomon's temple needs to be rebuilt. But the thing is that the Muslims, when they control the area, you know, back in the day, they built a temple there, right? and it's called the Dome of the Rock, and it has like a golden dome. Supposedly, it's the place where Muhammad took his midnight ride and he met Jesus and Moses and everybody else. Right. Long story short, it's a holy site to the Muslims. And the idea that if they destroy it, right, it would inflame the entire Muslim world. But I gotta say, the Muslim world is looking kind of pussy right now. They're looking kind of soft, because how you sit up here and let Israel slaughter millions of Muslim children, women and children, and y'all do nothing. Where were these same? Where was the Muslims from the Crusades who beat back the Christians for 200 years? Where were these Muslims at? Because these Muslims now, they're looking kind of pathetic. Where's the Ummah? Where's the Brotherhood of Believers?
I confused about that. They say I confused because they say it's one Ummah. It's one Ummah.
Yeah, where's the Ummah? I don't see the Ummah here. I don't see it. You mean to tell me these Saudi princes, the royal kingdom of Jordan is content to sit back while Israel and the United States basically fuck y'all in the ass, no lube, no condoms, no nothing? Not so much as the courtesy of a reach around? I don't get it. But, I'll leave it there.
Here's some fast facts, by the way, dealing with the greater Israel situation. Recently, there was a resolution that was sponsored by France and Saudi Arabia at the United Nations. This month, they voted at a high level this month, it was voted that was prompted back in July on a two-state solution for Israel and Palestine. And no Caribbean countries went against the vote. No Caribbean countries abstained against the vote. But there were four African countries that abstained from the vote: Cameroon, Democratic Republic of Congo, Ethiopia, and South Sudan. Now, Cameroon and Democratic Republic of Congo, it's whatever. But Ethiopia, I can see why they abstained, because they have a significant Jewish population in their country as well as in Israel. What I don't understand for the life of me is why South Sudan abstained from this. This is a country that's 14 years old that was brought to us by international recognition. Again, just some fast facts.
First of all, I thought that South Sudan is Christian, that their leader at least, and it was South Africa on there, because I know South Africa has big beef with Israelis as well on these issues. So was South Africa on that list, Jacadero?
South Africa was for the two-state solution. Again, they were the one African country that brought Israel to the ICJ late last year and said, hey, what you guys are committing is that big G word that some people don't like to say, but we'll say it on this show. You guys are committing a genocide in real time.
It's very telling, right? And I'm glad they abstained rather than voting against it. Maybe they didn't want to be seen as supporting it, but they didn't want to be seen as being against it either. But maybe that's their way of trying to play the middle of the fence. I think something I heard, I think it was Napoleon, said that a leader, should be like an iron fist with a silk glove, right? There's soft power and there's hard power, right? So soft power is like diplomacy, economics. Hard power is like military, just pure unbridled force. So what we see is there is no more soft power from the West, right? The West, the United States, whoever its allies, they're not using soft power anymore, especially with the psychopath in office. Everything is just about naked force, violence. You do what we want, we're gonna kill you. It used to be we could have diplomacy, we could sit down, and then when Hamas sent people to negotiate, they bombed them. So I think that these countries, when they see this, they see the erosion. There's no more diplomacy. There's no international law. There's no more international means. what did they call it? The rules-based order. All that's out the window. All of that is out of the window.
No, but the Black Steel, the thing with the West, in particular the United States, is one of the things that Trump did is, first of all, they call him Taco. Trump always cowards out. When he bombed Iraq, Iran, he said that he destroyed their nuclear ambition or whatever. And that was an obvious lie. Obvious lie. There are several things that Trump told the world he was going to do and then backed away from. Now, China and Russia is watching this. Not only them two,
Almost.
but
Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry, talking to my son. My bad.
No sweat. China is watching this. Russia is watching this, and so is the rest of the world. They say to themselves, "Oh, Trump is a big talker. He's a big talker, but he blinks. He blinks. And in front of your enemies, one of the worst things he could do is to be known as a person who don't carry through with what you say you're gonna do. And he's done that several times. And any strong power in the world looking at it and say, "Oh, okay, he blinks. So he ain't about that life, really. If Putin says something, we know he gonna carry through with it. Straight up. You know what I mean? And he showed you that with Ukraine. China, well, they about that life. But Trump blinks. And I think the rest of the world knows that even though they have extensive power, their willingness to use it, they recognize that Trump blinks.
Any last thoughts about Shoot the Breeze topic number 3 from any of our panelists? All right, if there isn't any, we'll go ahead and move to Shoot the Breeze topic number 4 that deals with Black people and their hair. And it reads, will Black people have the courage enough to follow through their proposals and actions regardless of opposition and fears and revive our glorious hair culture? And this is brought to us with the media. Let's go ahead and view this. Stand by.
Women all across the world stop buying hair products for 1 month, just one. Here's what would happen day by day. We'll never guess what happens by day 30. Day 1, major retailers panic. Beauty supply stores, Amazon, even Tesco and Target see a dip. They start calling emergency meetings and wondering if it's a boycott. Day 2 to 4, Korean and South Asian owned distributors start calling store owners and wondering what's going on with these orders. Meanwhile, social media is flooded with DIY hair care tips, product swaps, and natural styles. Day 5 to 7, stocks start sitting still and weekly targets are getting missed. So online stores try and do flash sales, but Black women aren't budging. Days 8 to 12, media picks it up, think pieces drop, and news segments with headlines saying Black beauty dollar disappearing. And those influencers, the ones who were silent, they start picking sides. Days 13 to 17, some beauty store owners start posting public apologies. Others double down. We've always supported the community. And a few offer Black brands better shelf placements out of fear. Days 18 to 21, smaller Black-owned hair care brands start to see a surge. Those ones who are still handmade and sell directly to consumer. Instagram and TikTok lives are flooded with founders, recipe sharing, and real talks about ingredients. Days 22 to 25, big brands start panicking. Emails start going out to their multicultural consultants. Marketing teams rush out apology rebrands. We hear you, we see you. Basically, just buy us again. Days 26 to 29, store revenue between the US and the UK beauty sector drop millions. You guys are making me want to start a revolution. Investors start to notice, product managers and retail buyers get fired. Quiet calls start to go out. Can we partner with Black founders now? Day 30, a full month later, and it's clear. The Black beauty consumer isn't just a niche. She is the market. And for once, she knows it. We talk about power, but if we decided to actually use it, are you deep in that? Game over. Follow if you're done watching passively. We decode the myth, and we don't clap for crumbs.
We don't clap for crumbs, he said. Once again, Shoot the Breeze topic number 4. Will Black people have the courage to follow through these proposals and actions regardless of opposition and fears and revive our glorious hair culture? This reminds me of Carlos Cooks, a protege of Marcus Garvey. And in Harlem, he would throw annual African beauty festivals. And one of the requirements as a beauty contestant was to have your hair as naturally as it came out of your head. So it just reminds me of that. Trigger Happy says, oh, can't wait for this topic. This is like funny and sad at the same time. War Drum says, I told people 20 years ago this, nobody cares. This is dealing with black hair, black women's hair specifically. We got a black woman on the panel. Cheryl, what say you?
Oh man, first again. So yeah, I haven't, I used to, dabble in the, the Korean hair store, but that was years ago. That was like 7 years ago or something like that. But I've had my locks ever since. But yeah, it's like crazy. And it's like you try having a conversation with women about not going to these Korean stores and these Asian people to get this dog hair, and it's just in one ear and out the other. And I mean, we're talking about, and they talking about only boycotting for 1 month. That's nothing. Most women keep their fake hair in for about a month. So I mean, after that, that's why they can only do it for 1 month, because after that they're back in there getting some more. So that's nothing. I just honestly, I would like to have hope for this, but I just don't see the women who are doing it. I don't see them just like having an epiphany and just being like, whoa, I need to, embrace my own natural beauty. Now, I will say, though, there are a lot of women who have embraced their natural beauty. I'm starting to see that a lot now, with the locks and everything. But I mean, you still have a significant enough portion of Black women who are supporting, the hair stores to the point where, these Asians out here are still making, it's still $1 billion business. So, and you try to tell them that, and it's all on deaf ears. The only way that they're going to not do that is if they have like an unfortunate encounter with, some hair that they put in their fake hair, they put in their head that causes their own hair to fall out. That's the only way I can see that actually happening. But I mean, as long as it's still marketed toward them, unfortunately, it's not going anywhere. Unfortunately.
Man, that's unfortunate to hear. Question for you, Cheryl Wall, because we have another video that goes with this prompt that I wasn't sent initially. When you were going to these hair salon or hair stores, were you also seeing, was the number of other Black women there significant, or was it just thrown out of proportion? The reason why I ask is just because I'm never in those places, clearly, but I would like to know that, is there a significant amount of Black women that often are in these stores, or is this just a legend?
No, it's not a legend. In fact, it's so significant to the point where, okay, when I was younger, we're talking, because I didn't have the fake hair in my head for that long. My parents typically, they didn't put that stuff in my hair. I only started doing it for convenience when I went into the military. But in terms of seeing it in my own neighborhood, like in West Philly, every Black neighborhood you go to, there's a Korean store. There's 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 in every Black neighborhood. And when I was younger, it used to be that the Asian people would pick out, or they would help you with buying your weave, right? But they've gotten to the point now where I guess maybe they've had a lot of negative interactions with the Black people in the community. So what they do now is they hire Black women And they used to hire Black women, but they would just be behind the counters. But now they have Black people like totally on the forefront. Like there used to be the Asian people at the front that would pay for your, whatever you bought. But now it's just for a lot of them, it's like majority Black people. The Black people, they pay for your, you pay for their stuff, your stuff, and then up in the front, there's a Black person cashing you out. There are Black people all in the aisles. Like it used to be Asian people that would help you do that, but they've gotten to the point where they don't even need to work anymore. They just make the Black people run it, and that is very disturbing to me. It's really bad.
That does sound horrific. Well, Trigger Happy sends us another video to go with this topic. Stand by.
We back. Yeah, we back. Today we're going to be talking about some developments coming out of Senegal, right? Now, brothers, I'm sure you've heard conversations, especially in regards to beauty standards. You've heard women say things like Black men don't appreciate Black women's natural hair, right? Now, of course, I've always pushed back on that, but you've definitely heard that many times before. I'm sure you have.
Guys will be like, "Oh, I love natural hair." Da, da, da. I'm just like, "No, you love a type of natural hair. Don't lie."
Black men say they love natural hair, but when the twist out shrinks, the curls frizz, and the wash and go is a wash and no, the love seems to disappear. Now, let's be real. There's a difference between loving natural hair and loving the idea of it. Because when they hype it up, they're not picturing 4C kinky coily hair, shrinkage, a short afro. No, they're thinking about that shoulder length, loose curl, type 3, the type that fits the beauty standard.
All right, we back. Now, like I said, today we're going to be heading to Senegal, right? The regime of President Faye and Prime Minister Sonko. Now, listen, I have a lot to say today. Now, take a look up on the screen. As you can see, this article came out the other day. Senegal's Grand Theater bans wigs, weaves, and skin bleaching in a new cultural policy, right? So as you can see, the regime in Senegal is fighting back against the so-called alleged European beauty standards. We are embracing our women's natural hair, right? We are encouraging them to embrace their natural hair, right? As you can see. Now, they cannot say Black men don't appreciate the natural hair because, as you can see, the regime in Senegal is taking steps to actually put that at the forefront, right? The so-called beauty standard that they talk about, we're going to put it at the forefront and we're going to promote it, and that's what we're going to embrace. Now, let's continue. Let's jump into the article. The National Grand Theater of Senegal has issued a directive banning the wearing of hair weaves, wigs, and the practice of skin bleaching among the staff. The internal memo signed by the director on July 4th cites the institution's commitment to upholding and promoting Pan-African values. This measure is intended to preserve the image of the institution, which must promote Pan-African values by one of its missions, according to the memo. The Director General also emphasized the importance of strictly enforcing the decision, right? So we are going against the alleged established beauty standard to embrace the African beauty standard. Now, take a look up on the screen. Look at this headline that came out a day after. The wig ban only lasts a day in Senegal after backlash. Let's jump into the article. A sudden and swiftly reversed ban on wigs, hair extensions, and skin lightening products at an iconic theater in Senegal's capital has ignited a widespread public backlash, laying bare the deep tensions around identity, gender politics, and cultural nationalism in the West African nation. The internal memo was stamped by the Ministry of Culture and issued on Monday by the director of the Grand Theater of Dakar. He said the move was to promote Pan-African values and protect the institution's cultural image. But critics accused him of policing women's bodies under the guise of cultural pride, and the ban was reversed the following day. Now, we got to have a conversation, right? We got to have a conversation. Now, I've always said this conversation regarding natural hair and the European beauty standard.
We got to have, I don't know what he talking. We got to have a conversation. Wow. Cheryl, we're going to go to you, but before we go back to you, man, that's
didn't we already just do Cheryl?
We want her response to the video. Black still, come on, we're chivalrous African men here. Come on, man. And also, this is a women related topic. So, with Trigger Happy saying that what a plot twist, this will be funny. Cheryl, any thoughts on the second video that you see?
No. I want somebody else to go first. No, this is no.
No problem. Black Steel, what say you?
Man, we got to understand psychology, right? With black people. A lot of black people hate themselves. And I'm just going to keep it a buck, right? A lot of black people hate themselves. A lot of they hate their skin color, and they particularly hate their hair, right? So that's why you have so much invested in keeping, particular hairstyles. Not only that, and I want to add something to this too. Not only that, but you also have to remember that, especially in the United States, right? Certain types of hairstyle, if you want to progress up the corporate ladder, certain type of hairstyles won't get you there. There is a video by a well-known, former, currently deceased, Kevin Samuels, telling black men, if you want to progress up the corporate ladder, you got to cut your dreads, cut your locks off. So not only do black people hate their hair, right, but also there's a lot of incentives for us to cut our hair. If you want to be in certain rooms and whatnot, cut your hair. What kills me is that this happened in Africa. This happened in Senegal. There's no white people blocking you from progressing up the corporate ladder. And you still did this? Not just the hair, but the skin bleaching, which causes cancer. And the chemicals that black women put into their hair give them diseases and fibroids and affects their fertility. And you really got set up here and you just said, nah, we want that. What? The self-hatred is deep, and it's really disturbing when we talk about these things, because we can all see, I think we're a bunch of more or less pretty much conscious individuals. And when you have people who are like, you know what, I'd rather go back to this creamy crack. I'd rather get that 20-inch bust down. It's so disheartening sometimes, man, because you feel like you're screaming into the void and people are just like, like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Like, stop. But again, there's such a powerful media propaganda system that is in place against African people. You know, in general. And it's hard to overcome it. And I think it starts at a young age, but also too, I've even seen it with young people, with people, kids in high school and middle school. I hate this nigga hair. You black, you so black. I don't like your black ass. Can't stand your, it's always a negative connotation with blackness and our hair color. Oh, and then they want to say, oh, it's this hair is too hard to maintain. One more thing, I'll leave it. There was in the United States, there were a couple of stories about black women who were being attacked in these Asian stores, right? They went into these, Korean or these Asian beauty shops, and there'd be an altercation. And some black men shut the shop down. They broke the windows, they destroyed the shop, and you had black women lined up a few weeks later when they reopened the shop and were offering a 50% discount. They were lined up. We got to deal with this internalized self-hatred. And it's not just black women too. I don't want to beat up on the sisters too much. A lot of black men feel the same way about their hair, about their skin color, about their relations with other black people. But yeah, we really have to deal with this internalized self-hatred. Sometimes it's not about choice. We think it's about free choice, but why is it everything you choose enriches and glorifies the European? Why is it your choices always lean towards a certain direction? I'll stop there. Thank you.
I want to.
Yeah, go ahead, Bono. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to answer Black Steel. Black Steel knows who Frantz Fanon is. Frantz, and I'm paraphrasing. Frantz Fanon said the most powerful thing in the hands, the most powerful tool in the hands of the colonizer is the mind of the colonized. Now, we initially started this discussion in talking about extraterrestrials and all these other things. You know, and I'm saying the reason why extraterrestrials won't come here is because they see the backwardsness of humanity. We are talking about hair. Now, the issue is now you can't ascend or be the best of yourself in the so-called corporate world unless you cut your hair, not your ability to perform a job, not your ability to perform any kind of work, but it's because you have a certain hairstyle, you can't ascend to the highest office you need to ascend to. That is so backwards. That is so backwards. And we play that game. You know, when the Ukrainian president went to see the American president, Donald Trump, one of the speakers in the room said, well, why aren't you wearing a suit and a tie? That's what he was. And they had a big brouhaha over him wearing a suit and a tie. And then the following week, Elon Musk came to the president office. He was wearing no suit, no tie. He was wearing a hat and a shirt and a jacket. No one questioned him. Because he, as a wealthiest man in the world, he refuses to play that game. I am waiting for my corporate black sisters to start a hue and cry to say that it is illegal, it's erroneous, it's ridiculous to judge us by our hairstyle as opposed to us performing a job. There should be a hue and cry from our corporate sisters, our professional sisters, to say we should be able to wear our hair the way we want it to. As far as hair policing, I'm not a big advocate of hair policing. My woman the other day, I asked her, I say, why don't we, because she had a natural hair allergy. I said, why don't we hair natural? You think I go out of the house looking like this? You know, you think it was hilarious to me. She wear braids, she's wearing braids. I'm thinking to myself, what's wrong with your hair? The excuse of black men don't like that. I have never met personally. I don't know where all these black men are who want to see these blonde, blue, green wigs. I don't know. Maybe Cheryl Lee's husband like her blonde wig, which she's wearing for him. But I'm saying, but I'm kidding with you, Cheryl. But I'm saying that usually the black men I have met, they don't mind black women with their natural hair. I don't know where these men exist. Who are women?
Buana, also too, since when do they care what we like? They do what they want to do, whether we like it or not.
Thing. That's
all of a
thing.
sudden, what we like matters.
They don't give a shit. They don't get it's a convenient excuse. It's a convenient excuse. Because
I want you to make the chicken like my mama. I'll make it the way I want to make this chicken. Leave me alone. You don't like it, don't eat it.
Yeah. You can't tell me.
All of a sudden, you let me don't like it.
You pay for it. So suppose they pay for it. Then don't tell me what her. It's nonsense. But they say that it's easier to manage. Natural hair is more difficult, especially when you're going on. And then the corporate world says this. And I'm like, come on, man. It's your hair. It's your hair. I am not a hair aficionado. I am not a hair police. If it look nice, I'm a rock with it. I don't really give a damn. Most black men don't give a shit. To be honest with you. But if we had a choice, I have not met these group of black men who want to see the red hair I see out here in the streets, the purple shit, long blonde, the blonde hair. I've not met men. Most men I've met, they don't mind women rocking their natural hair. This is my reality. I don't know if it's different in the United States, but this has been my experience.
Buana, just to also two things. Black Steel, you brought up the case. I believe it was somewhere in the South where a company was either going out of business or some type of sale that caused for people to line up at a beauty store, and there was a fight. I believe that there was at least one fight because of maybe impatience. I'm not 100% sure, but that was pretty sad to see. Not just because they were there in a large mass, but they were also fighting. So it's like, what are you doing? And then Buana, give me a moment to think what you had just said. Yeah, the brothers, you have never met any brothers that didn't like the natural hair. I grew up here in the Midwest, and man, I'm not saying that it's common, but I am saying that you do notice, and it is significant of interracial relationships. And when I see interracial couples, especially when it's a Black woman or a white man or Asian man, or I don't think I've ever seen a Latino man, but when a Black woman is with a non-Black man, I often see them in their natural hair, and it often confuses me, because I'm like, wait a minute. So what did this guy say to you to have you wear your natural hair? Just a point I wanted to point out is like, they might not wear their natural hair when they're with us. Again, this is not every woman, right? But in my experience, witnessing interracial relationships is the sisters will often go out with their natural hair with a non-Black partner.
Is that right? Is that right?
I'm serious. As a matter of fact, because with the Empowerment Network, one of the things that we do is data collections, and so I attended a large. Matter of fact, it was the Native Days. It was a celebration of the historic North Omaha community, and there were a couple women that were there with their white partners, and they were in their natural hair. I don't know.
You know why? I'm gonna tell you why. Let me
Please.
When a white man, first of all, these Black women that are doing this, right? First of all, they value white men's opinions more than they value Black men's opinion, right? So you'll see those women who put whiteness on a pedestal, they are more than compliant and submissive to what the white men want, as opposed to the Black men. Not because they're just particularly better, but because they're just white, and whiteness has value. Two, right? When white men, usually they fetishize Black women, right? And if you're gonna fetishize somebody, you don't want no imitation. You get that type of hair to stay with a white woman. You want the real. You want everything that's natural, right? I don't want no Black woman wearing a white woman's hair. I want a Black woman.
You want mommy Africa.
I want mommy Africa. So, but even though, and again, most Black men aren't really too concerned about the whole thing with the hair. Just like with the BBL Brazilian butt lift. Most men don't really like that Brazilian butt lift stuff. You look ridiculous. But yet women, again, the men that they want, the men they value, the rappers and the football players, maybe they like that type of image. But the regular, everyday round the way man doesn't really too much care for that. But that's why I think they tend to go with the natural hair more so when they were white dudes. Because a white man, if he's gonna get outside his race, if he's fetishizing Black women, he could legit care for her. But more like he's fetishizing, he wants the real deal. He could have stayed with his own women if he really wanted that type of hair.
So Black Steel. Let me just quantify what you said. So considering that Black men usually don't mind natural hair, and Black women resist that completely, they throw that in the garbage can. Most Black men like natural body features. They don't like the Brazilian butt lift or fake tits and shit like that. But Black women resist that. Do Black women really want a white guy? Is that what it is? Is that what it really is? Is that what it really comes down to?
I'm gonna tell you what I think it is, right?
No, they don't.
I'm gonna tell you what I think it is. I think they want a lifestyle, right? They want a lifestyle, and they believe that lifestyle is more attainable with a certain type of man, right? That's one thing. Two, I think some women, some Black men have done it pretty bad. They've been hurt deeply. And they blame, all Black men unfortunately get caught with it straight. But also too, it's hard to be Black. It's really hard to be Black in this world. And just like when we talk about how the so-called racial democracy of Brazil, right? The whole idea of blancamiento. Go ahead, Cheryl. I'm gonna cut you off. Go ahead. I'm talking my ass off.
No, you good. But I just wanted to just let everybody know, like, this conversation, all right, like, just going back to the Senegalese thing, like, it sounds crazy to us, right? Like, because it's like over there, like on the continent, but like, this is where religion and hair cross paths, because your big old afro is not fitting under that Afghan unless you braid it back and put a weave on top of it so you can look like your Arab counterparts. And in Senegal, the main religion is Islam. They're Muslim over there. So there's no way them women was going to go for that. And the same goes for Christianity. And just a couple people brought it up. When you go into the corporate world, I have a cousin who is a lawyer. She's beautiful. She's smart. But she not walking in there with no afro. And she's a Christian. She is a Christian by the book. And there is a link between how you wear your hair and what religion you practice. Can't nobody tell me no different. Because like you can't, if you're not trying to if you're not trying to look like the Arab, and they'll say all day long that they're not trying to look like the Arab, but you can't wear the Arab garb. You can't wear that thing with your big old afro sticking out. Come on. Like that, it's cultural, and people don't want to see religion as cultural. And this goes back to kind of something we was talking about earlier about how you can't unite with people who are different. Like if I'm a black nationalist and you're a Muslim, I mean, we might converge on some things. We might agree with certain topics, certain things, but at the end of the day, you ain't trying to get them Arab people up out of there for real. You can't. First of all, our women that are Muslims, they can't even get away from the garb that they wear. They wear in the same cultural clothing. They're trying to do their hair the same way. So you cannot separate hair. Why women have these hairstyles from the religion. It's like, and even if you're not a super Christian, you have Christian ideology. And that's where we get all of these comments from our own people about you nappy headed this, you nappy headed that, because
Shirley is.
That's all it is. You can, and that's why we cannot unite with people who are Muslim and who are Christian. At the end of the day, when it comes down to it, when it comes down to knocking certain people off the face of the planet, you cannot. You can agree with them on certain points, and you can maybe have lunch with them at the same table or whatever, talk about irrelevant shit, but you cannot unite with them, not fully.
Cheryl, if I was to try to haul at your cousin, right now, okay, considering
snap.
No, hear me out.
Okay.
Considering what you just told me, your Christian cousin who is a corporate person and all that good stuff, right? How could I ever have a successful, or how could I ever win with her? Because really, the ultimate person in her life is a nice, handsome-looking European man with a sharp nose and long blonde hair, who she sees every day, and she has that as her worship figure. Hold on, help me out. Then
okay, so go ahead.
Let me finish. And then she drank this corporate dream, where the height of that, when you ascend to the highest levels of corporate America, is a European male. So how can me, as a unapologetic black man, by the way, unapologetic black man, because I could compete with anyone. How? Because even if I was to come to her with my Bahamian accent, she will always see me as substandard to what she have in her mind as the ultimate. You know what I mean? So it's like, how do you win with that? You can't win. You can't win.
Well, why would you bother?
I will say,
why would you bother?
no. But listen, I will say though, this is how black people are unique from every other group. When religion was put on us, most black people who are Christian conservative are married to black men. The vast majority of them are. So it's not It's not that they idolize, they want to be with a white man. That's just a subgroup of black women who, maybe they were harmed physically by a black man, or they had some negative encounter and they took it into their, some type of trauma or something. But that's not all black women. Most black women, Christian conservative, are married to black men. But I think when it comes to interacting with them or anything dealing with politics or anything like that, when you start making, I'm talking, she's a lawyer, she just became a lawyer, but when you start making big money, that's when I feel like the race starts to change. The race of the man starts to change. But your average black conservative woman is not trying to be with no white man. They're just not. And I think that has to do with how we were uniquely colonized. Because we're not really going for white men like that. And the proof is in the statistics, because if we were, you would see a lot of children who have black mothers and white fathers. So but you don't see that too much. You don't see that too much.
No sweat. So Cheryl, is it because, and I'm gonna put this question out here, is it because white men are not choosing y'all as marriageable material? Is y'all say, okay, I'm gonna settle for the black man who have the same kind of European ideas, by the way, rather than getting the ultimate? That's what I really want. That's what I really aspire to. But since he really doesn't want me, I'm gonna marry this man over here who look just like me, but still have my same ideas.
Hey, you might be onto something. I you know what? I can. It's so multifaceted. It's so individualized. It depends who you talk to, because I think you're onto something, because they could be with a black man, but if they had the opportunity to be with a white man, they would. Or if they have children and they have a daughter, they wouldn't say no to that daughter when she grew up being with a white man. Like I've had that in my family. Like my a person in my family, she knows she's fine with me being with a black man, but she fantasizes about me being with someone who's white, because white to her represents stability. So that's what it comes out, and that seems to be the case across continents. That seems to be the case. So yeah.
All right, let's read some of these comments here. This is just like Shoot the Breeze topic number 3. This is heavy. Trigger Happy says, my argument reference point is always going to be, what did our ancestors do? Were black women in ancient periods wearing bust down, blonde wigs and making excuses about it? Probably not. D Webb says, well, he says, I agree with you. My point is, you ain't stopping black women from doing anything. I'm raising a few. You reason and you instill pride. I think when a man deals with women, it gets tricky. It's not like solving a Rubik's cube. It's a bit more complex than that. Yeah. Any panelists? Anything else to add on to this? Black women's hair? Anything related to Shoot the Breeze topic number 4?
I agree with the idea of stable and stability. I try to be the most boring black man in the world. I don't want to be exciting. I want to be boring. I want to be someone who you could depend on for certain things to happen at the end of the day. And if the whole flashy thing that the world looks after, I think that eventually burns out, and what's left over is what is the thing that really matters. Are you going to be there at the end of the day? Consistency of doing that. I think that's what I personally value as a man. I don't know what these women going for these days, because I'm not out here, and I really don't know. But I'm not just trying to be that individual. I'm just trying to have a nice, comfortable, respectful, boring life where I can enjoy the fruits of my labor at the end of the day. I love my black women, but I know with these fantasies they have in their head. I can't fulfill some of these fantasies. I am never gonna be Brad Pitt. I'm not gonna be Brad. I don't want to be Brad Pitt. I want to be Brad Pitt. I'm never gonna have Brad Pitt accent and walk around. I'm not gonna be like that. So you just have to enjoy the reality that you are actually in. And if they going for these kinds of people, what do you do with that? It's nothing I could say. I wish you the best of luck. I wish you the best of luck. When I see people like Serena Williams, with her mate, and her blonde hair, and I ain't trying to be disrespectful, but I think of Planet of the Apes. Now that's a disrespectful thing to say. That's disrespectful. Well, I'm saying that you look weird. You cut up your nose. You cut up all your facial features. You look different from how you used to look in South Central.
She lost her booty.
You lost. Goodness, this is what you have to do. I'm saying that. I mean, I would love you with your ghetto South Central booty, with your big broad nose and your hair. I would love you. You don't have to do all of that. Why do you feel you need to do that? I don't want that. I don't want that, man. I don't want it.
It's a lot. And Buana, real quick, you're better than Brad Pitt. Forget that guy. You're better just because you're an African.
Of course I am. But your issue is, why do people like you want to chase after white girls? Because with your white girlfriend, I mean, you need to reconsider that, jacket there. I know you're in I know you're in Nebraska, right?
He'd be like, "Where the white women at?" It's like, no, it's like, I'm just joking.
Wow. Hey, getting some headshots from Buana, huh? I'm not Charlie Kirk, Buana. Come on, man. You need to back off. But we're at the hour. We're at the hour where I can make a decision, but I want you guys to vote for it. Not only you panelists, you guys are watching at home, you guys in the chat. Put 1 in the chat if you want to go with our last topic. It deals with the Caribbean and our Caribbean panelists. Put 1 for it or 2 against it, and we can just end the show. Once again, I'm putting the power to you guys. Again, put 1 for one last topic, shoot the breeze, topic number 5, or put 2 for against it. We just end the show and we have you guys continue to enjoy.
No, I want to see the Caribbean discussion. I want to see it.
You don't want people to vote, Buana? You don't want this to be look, right now we're getting some 1s, huh? Fellas, ladies, we're getting some 1s. I haven't seen a 2 yet. We're getting some 1. Okay, you know what? We're going to go ahead and go with it. Shoot the breeze, topic number 5. It deals with the Caribbean. Buana, it says, for our Caribbean panelists and commentators, is this perspective correct or is she wrong and over-exaggerating? Once again, for our Caribbean panelists, is this perspective correct or is she wrong and over-exaggerating? And it's brought to us with the media from Instagram. Let's go ahead and let's check it out.
Quite clearly and rightfully, was saying that as Caribbean people, we don't need to justify and explain our culture to outsiders. This is in reference to the critique that we see come up all the time when it comes to the way that we dance at our cultural festivals like Carnival and Crop Over, the costumes and their skimpiness. And I agree that we don't need to meet a standard of decency that's set by people outside of our culture. But within the culture, we need to be honest with ourselves. Like, come on. We always say, in defense of the critiques, this is our culture. And we're doing this in reference to our history when it comes to ancestral resistance. I think it does our ancestors a disservice to rope in all of the ways that we participate in this culture now in connection with that ancestral history. When we think about the normative carnival costumes now, which is a high-priced, mass-produced monokini with your pegs out, how is that connected to our ancestral history and the dancing that we see? There's a difference between sensuality and dancing in a way that celebrates our bodily autonomy, and the dancing that we see that is mainly the dancing that is critiqued online. When two people are simulating sex on the ground and a man have a woman like cock up on the ground and he's dry humping her, how is that connected to our ancestral history? The revelry, the joy, the collective exuberance, the liberation, that is drawing on the tradition that was set by them in their resistance and in their rebellion against the colonial system. But all of the ways that we show up now are not connected to our ancestors. And I think we need to own that. We cannot deny that with the commodification of Carnival and the way that it's being packaged, particularly as a product for outsiders to participate in, and in the normative imagery that's shown on social media, that it is hypersexualized. Even when it comes to the way that women's bodies are portrayed, like, yes, nudity is not inherently sexual, but there is a hypersexualization in the way that we portray women's bodies. A lot of people don't even know about the history of Carnival. A lot of people don't even know about the history of crop over. They don't know about the history of Juve. They think that it's a place to come and joke down and have fun and party. But I also think that when we portray our festivals and our culture in a certain way, and that's what outsiders see, that we shouldn't blame them for having this perception of what our culture is, because that's what we have chosen to show them.
Hey, for our Caribbean panelists and commentators, is this perspective correct or is she wrong and over exaggerating? And I mean, let's go to the comments first. Yeah, Cheryl asks, is she India? I don't know. She might be. I don't know, of Indo descent. Trigger Happy says, so are you saying it will be an issue in the diaspora? Let's go to our Caribbean representative at the panel right now. Buana, is she over exaggerating? Where did this costume and the dry humping and everything else that she was talking about, huh?
Yeah. I would tell this Trinity gal go mind her business because I like dry humping. But that's just it. No. That's the thing. Usually, right? See, we grew up in the puritanical view, and the Puritan ethic is in the minds, and Elizabethan ethic in the minds of a lot of Westerners who had a problem with sex and sexuality, especially when it comes to men and women relationships. They see that as an evil thing, especially when it regards to religion. Okay, always saw it that way. So, but what they don't understand is the sexual act is a recreation of a life process. That's how life is created. It's really and truly, it's a celebration of life. Now, I understand my brothers and sisters on the panel will see that as a stretch because they think, well, I'm being a pervert. But in reality, that is just an expression of the creation of life itself. And some Puritans and some people with a particular puritanical view would see that as vulgar, just as when they see the African in Africa whining and shaking her body and gyrating her body with no bra and stuff like that. They don't understand it. But in reality, how is life supposed to be created without that act itself? So we acknowledge that act. That's a celebration of life. That's a celebration of creating life. And like I say, I understand the people with a puritanical view, with these religious ideas, considering sex as evil, would see that act or see those dancing and gyrations as something from a deviation of what is pure and righteous in their minds. But it's just an acknowledgement of life. We celebrating that through that act, life is created and it's continuous. As far as the costumes is concerned, that's a whole nother matter because we always had costumes. You could find costumes everywhere in Africa. You know, everywhere in Africa, everywhere. In fact, that's those traditions was born out of an African experience.
Yeah,
So I think that.
But Buana,
What I didn't watch the whole video, by the way. Let me just put that out there. Yeah.
She was specifically not talking about the carnival costumes like the masks or the horns. She was specifically talking about the next to nothing costumes that women often wear, maybe at Junkaroo that you finally invited me to this summer. Thank you, by the way.
Yeah, like I say, we in the Caribbean, we are not afraid of the human, especially the woman, the human form. We don't run away from that. I think that these austere Abrahamic religions like to cover a woman's body and shun it and act as if it's something evil and vulgar. And Africans never had that view. This is the reason. Well, one of the reasons. You know, African women in traditional societies don't necessarily cover up, especially in sub-Saharan weather, and we don't shy away from the human form. What is so ugly about a female's body that you want to cover it up all the time? I'm not saying that you should express it in a way that is almost on it's on a disrespectful level. What I'm saying is the woman's form and the woman's body is something to be appreciated, not segregated, put in the back, covered up, and it's like, well, we should not acknowledge that. That come from Rome. These ideas come from Rome. People who like little boys and stuff. You know, we don't shy away from that. We don't. I'm saying that it should be appreciated, but it shouldn't be seen in a way where it's disrespected. If you could understand, we walk a strategic line where we appreciate the woman's form, but we don't want it to be cast in a certain way that she is only that. I understand, and this is in carnival season is a time of celebration, and like I say, the whole gyration and wine and stuff. This is a celebration of life. What people don't understand, it's the same idea when the white man went to Africa and see the black man giving honor and veneration to so-called trees and shit like that, not understanding there's life in the tree itself. So you must give respect and pay homage to trees. This is just, for me, it's just a misunderstanding of culture. It's a misunderstanding of culture. And this Trinidadian or Guyanese woman may have not been explained these ideas and things. I believe. That's my personal opinion. I'll also watch the video completely again to really see what she was getting at. But this is my explanation of why things are observed in the way they observe during the carnival times and things of that nature. I just really wanted to explain that and make that very clear. I hope I did.
Yeah, you did. Next time you gotta watch the video. Let me know in the beginning, bro, and I can rewind the video. But moving on,
Yeah.
Black Steel, what say you? Is she overreacting, or is there a place for the next to nothing outfits at the carnivals and the gyrating and the daggering, the daggering?
Hello, you talking to me?
Yeah, maybe you're whining with your wife right now. Maybe.
Man, I'm in here grading papers, man. I'm sorry. These kids is bomb. I'm just depressed grading these papers right now. Anyways, you know what? I'm not a Puritan, man. Let people live their life and be happy, right? If people want to go, you know, as long as nobody's getting hurt, who cares, right? I'm not really tripping about this whole thing, right? Sex isn't bad, right? We got this worldview where everybody got to walk around fully covered, not showing ankles, and whatnot. We got to leave that stuff in the past, man. We got to leave it in the past. There's a reason why white people, with so many European nations, birth rate is below replacement level, right? And a lot of it has to do with their reluctance around intercourse. Oh, we can't do this, we can't do that. But they've always used that as an excuse to look down upon African people, right? I just feel like, these people want to be so hyper religious and whatnot. Let people live their lives, man. Y'all mind your goddamn business. If you don't want to go to the carnival, you don't gotta go to the carnival. Mind your business. Let people enjoy things. Let people enjoy the things they want to enjoy. What's wrong with seeing a couple titties and some ass, everywhere. I can't wait to go. Juan, where's my invite? I'm hurt deeply.
Hey, Black Shield. Without titties and ass, you would not be here, brothers. We have to. I appreciate them. I appreciate.
I do too. I love that. I start a fan club if I could. But yeah, where's my invite though? For real, let's get off topic.
What? Like I told Dr. Darrow, if I'm not gonna be in the country this year, but you invited, brother. I guess I have to pay with some more money, but I'm gonna invite you and Jack and Darrow. When I'm in the country next year, I'm gonna invite the both of you and your wife, and that's as far as I can go, because that's a lot of money to spend. But I'll invite the both of you all to come enjoy John Canoe.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Juana. Cheryl, last panelist's thoughts, and you're a woman. What say you? Are you against the gyrating, the daggering, the slow wine, and of course the next to nothing outfits that both Black Steel and Juana appreciate so much?
Nah, you guys are heathens. You guys just want to. You're a bunch of whores. I'm taking it.
I hope so.
No, I'm just taking a page out of my mother-in-law's book. But no, for real, I'm gonna flip this on the feminists. Just it's my body, my choice. How about that? How about that? Leave me alone. Let me shake my ass.
You're gonna shake it to the max, Cheryl, huh?
Shake it to the max. Let me shake it to the max.
Question for Cheryl. This was a woman that brought it up, and I don't have a chance to interview her, but one of the things that I would ask her, and maybe I can ask you, is she also coming from the perspective of saying, hey, there are children at these events. Like, why do you need to be naked? You wouldn't be naked any other time. You wouldn't be doing these things any other time unless there's a festival. So why don't you just be curious and just act as if you were acting at any other time of the year? What say you?
Oh my God, I hate when they do that. I hate when they throw the children thing in it. Like something is being done like in front of the children. Like it's just the human body. Like people get so weird around it. And it's because of, like someone said earlier, it's because of, was it Protestantism or in religion? It's all of that. Like, oh, I gotta present myself in front of people a certain way. And we wasn't even thinking like that. Like we wasn't even thinking sexual like that. Like they bring the sexual stuff into it. But even if you were thinking sexual, there's nothing there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a celebration of life. It's done. It's this particular event held for it's held for a particular cultural purpose. So if they don't like it, then bye. You don't gotta be there.
True indeed. Black Steel, Buana, any last thoughts here before we wrap up for the night?
If you don't like the female figure, just go to the church, and go to the Catholic priest where they touching. Well, let me leave that alone. But I'm just saying that if you don't like the female figure, just go do your thing. Go do your thing. Go to church and go do your thing. I appreciate the female figure. I see. I'm not bashing on the Christians. Let me make that clear. But the Christians have decided to turn the woman into a ghost. They say the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And because you can't have the Son without the woman. But since they have a disdain for women, they turn her into a ghost. We appreciate the woman. We're not Puritans. We appreciate the woman. We acknowledge the woman. In fact, the African man has always put the women in our godhood. So we acknowledge the fact that without the woman, there would be no life on this planet Earth. So if they have a problem with the human figure, the female figure, let them go to their churches and practice what they've been practicing and doing their thing. We don't mind. Y'all do your thing over there.
I just wanted to say real quick, the home of the pedophiles got something to say about us. Like y'all produce all of the pedophiles, so I don't want to hear nothing from them.
I love this chat. I love this show. Black Steel, any last thoughts on this Shoot the Breeze topic number 5?
No, I think I've said my piece.
All right, I appreciate you guys here. Let's go ahead and wrap it up with some shout outs. That's right, shout out anything, people, places, what's going on currently, individuals that you want to recognize. We'll start off with Black Steel. Black Steel, we'll get you on with the rest of your night grading papers. What's your shout out?
What am I shouting out, man? What am I shouting out? Oh, it's been a crazy week here in the U.S. If you don't know, but if I could say we've had our Reichstag fire moment. For those of you who might not be aware of the history behind it, but anyways, shout out to everybody on the panel. Shout out to my Black people in the struggle. Remember all our political prisoners. Shout out to them. Shout out to you, Jackadero, for coming through and hosting tonight.
Man, that's big love. I appreciate it, Black Steel. You don't know what that means. Wanna shout outs. What you got for us?
Yes, sir. So shout out to my African American people. It seems the Reichstag has as Black Steel said, is coming after the freedom of speech. And I don't know how long the show is going to continue, with the freedom of speech police trying to police your rights to express your opinions. But I appreciate y'all. Y'all keep up, keep your heads up, keep your dukes up, and y'all know what to do. Fight these guys as much as y'all can, man, because they coming after us, man. They coming after the freedom of speech. So I don't know. I really don't know. It's looking kind of weird. But I hope and I wish and I pray that this show continues in the vein it's been continuing on. I know that the police, the freedom of speech police people are coming after everyone now. But I know that my brothers and sisters in America will make it. Y'all gonna make it, man. Y'all just keep y'all dukes up, But shout out to you, Jackadero, for standing in for Koku. Me and Koku need to have a conversation. Trigger Happy, could you please cut your prompts down to maybe one sentence sometimes, because but shout out to everyone who contributed tonight. Shirley's, I really always appreciate to hear my sister from South Philly, West Philly, that's it. Jill Scott, West Philly. Chiming in and giving us her opinions about what's going on there. Black Steel, fuck them kids, like you usually say. And I hope everyone is well and you all stay healthy through the week.
Man, fuck them kids, man. They bombing this test. Like, what did I even teach these kids? Oh my god. Listen, let me tell you, can I vent for a second?
Go ahead, big dog. It's you, man. Go
so
ahead.
Hold on. So we doing our unit on medieval Christian Europe, right? I know it's not the most exciting topic, crusades, whatnot, but it's an open note test. So you take the notes, you can use your notes on the test. And we had a review before the test. So the number of kids that are failing right now is affecting me in an emotional way, because what are we even talking about right now? It's an open note test.
Are these undergrad?
9th and 10th grade.
Oh, 9th and okay.
So how you fail an open note test? This is impossible to me. Like I don't know. It's giving me a headache and a toothache at the same time. It's just, oh my god. That's one event. Sorry.
Nah, you good, man. Yeah, you might not like this, Black Steel, but I've attended many of Dr. Umar's speaking engagements here in Omaha, and one thing that he stands on is that when students fail, it's not because they're failing; it's because the teacher's failing them. But again, this is This is Dr. Umar.
It was an open note test.
This is the COVID kids. These are COVID kids. Cut them some slack.
That's not.
No, it's a
Dr. Umar Ifatunde Cheryl, what say you with the shout out tonight?
Yo, shout out to all the black people in the US, minding their own black business. When white people, when Obruni, I like that word, Obruni. When Obruni start killing each other, minding your own black business, they ain't got nothing to do with us. They do what they do. We move on like nothing happened. They ain't got nothing to do with us. So shout out to them.
Man, you guys are awesome. You guys, I the only way that this happens is with you guys. And I want to be frank with this. It only happens with you guys, from the panelists to the chat, to everybody in the Discord. This only happens with you guys. And big shout out to Brother Koku for allowing me to co-host. It's awesome. I can't thank him enough. Also, big shout out to Bud Crawford, man, whooping ass, belt to ass, whooping ass. And for those that are around the Midwest, next Saturday, the 27th of September, we are having a parade downtown, starting in North Omaha, floating up all the way to downtown for Bud Crawford. Starts at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Please come out. The Empowerment Network, which I represent, will be in attendance. Who is the Empowerment Network? What is the Empowerment Network? I like to always say that we are your consultants' favorite consultants. Data analysis and data engineering and everything outside and in between. We do collaborations with sister cities like Houston, Texas, Memphis, Tennessee, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Little Rock, Arkansas, and everywhere outside and in between. Again, that's Empowerment Network. That's www.empoweromaha.com. With that being said, man, you guys have been awesome. I don't know on how else to end this show, but since we were on the Caribbean topic, let's go.
Thanks for listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast with your host, Koku. If you like what you just heard, we hope you pass along our web address, bittermedicineblogs.com, to your friends and colleagues, and share our show to all your social media. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts. This has been a KWAZ radio production. Join us next time for another session of the Bitter Medicine Podcast. Follow us on Facebook at Bitter Medicine Show, Twitter, Bitter Meds, Tumblr, Bitter Meds, Instagram, Bitter Medicine.